Hi, everybody. Live from the Knob Scott Cafe in Framingham, Massachusetts. It's K-Sports Sunday on a Monday. For those of you who don't have any idea what I'm talking about, it's basically a sports talk show for kids with kids. And the two kids that are joining me, Tom Kelly and Joe Braverman. And they've been working with me now for a couple of years, and we're going to be entertaining you for the next hour or so on about sports talk and other things that have been going on in the world of sports, and trying to make it entertaining, informational, and educational, not necessarily in that order. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
I want to know one thing right off the bat. Is your homework done?
Kind of.
Is your homework done?
Completely done.
See?
He does his homework.
See?
From the
He's
junior.
good.
That's
He's
right.
good.
That's right. The junior year is far more important, right?
Yes.
All right.
Don't get senioritis like me.
You're supposed to wait till January for that. You know that, right?
Yes.
That's all right.
Getting a head start.
All right, guys, this is a new thing for us because we're going to be doing about an hour's worth of sports talk before the Jimmies come on.
Oh.
Jimmy Myers,
The
Jimmy
brothers from different mothers.
The twin brothers from different mothers. Very good. That'll be the show coming up at 6:30, just in case you have no life and you're watching this streaming live on YouTube. Anyway, but there's lots to talk about. Of
Yes.
course, there's anticipation whenever your team doesn't play on the weekend
Yeah.
and your team plays on Monday night. I mean,
Prime time.
I'm like chomping at the bit to watch this game after watching a little football yesterday.
And, I'm very, very worried about this game, too, especially about the Pats' offensive line. I mean, last week against the Raiders, that was a joke.
Of course. I mean, when you look at the Patriots, this it wasn't one of their better performances, but they did come out with a win somehow. And I don't know how they find a way to win. Now, with what you're talking about with the offensive line, you got the newest replacements coming in.
Yeah.
Josh Klein, of course,
Yes.
in there, and
I don't think Josh
Ryan
Klein
Wendell?
is in there.
He's not?
I don't think so. In fact, I think I saw a note that he may not be dressed.
Oh.
I may have seen that. You never know, though, what flashes before my eyes. But the
Exactly.
key, guys, is the center, Brian Stork, the rookie. They drafted him, I'm pretty
Yes.
sure. And when he came in the fourth quarter against the Raiders last week,
He did decently.
you know what? Well enough to keep Brady
enough.
upright, because
But
that is the key. Everybody's
w-
worried about the Patriots.
It
offense.
worked against the Raiders.
I
The
understand.
Raiders are not the gold standard.
I understand, and the Kansas City Chiefs aren't either.
Well, they're a taller task.
yeah, and
Good
definitely
defense.
their defense is improved. But this Kansas City defense doesn't have their safety Eric Berry. He's out with an injury, so you gotta think, how might that come into effect?
And I want to think about the big picture here. If the Patriots don't do something about this offensive line, by the end of the season, Brady will be in a body bag.
Absolutely,
Plain and
100%.
simple.
And we don't want that.
No, we don't.
Because the key to the season continues to be keep your quarterback upright and healthy, right? I mean,
Yes.
if
He's
you
been
give Brady
pressured
time,
26% of the
I
time
know.
this year.
But you know what? If you look at where they were last year, they always start like this. Hi, Paul. Good to see you. They always start like this. Nice and slow. Like I said, I've said this many times. This is really their preseason. This is really their warm-up. September is their warm-up. And now we're going to see whether they finish that warm-up 2-2 or they finish 3-1. And I think anybody would take that 3-1 at the beginning of the year. But the thing about Patriots fans, as you know, we're all pretty spoiled. We being the
Yes.
fans are spoiled.
Yeah.
Okay? We have high standards, right?
Very high, ridiculously high.
Right. Perhaps even unfair.
Oh, yeah, because we're used to see, like in the early 2000s, the dynasty, we're used to seeing them winning. We want championships. We expect nothing less.
You guys were a little young in 03 and 04, right?
I remember
Yes.
04.
04.
I remember 36.
Okay. So do you remember the team that used to score on their first possession every game? Every game. For like 23 games in a row, they
No.
scored on their first possession. That's one of those things that they haven't been able to do this season. I think they actually got one field goal out of all their drives so far this season. So something to look forward, something to look at, something to look
Okay.
at. All right, Joe, you talked a little bit about the defense for Kansas City. They have a good pass rush. They got a couple of guys with some serious names. Tamba Hawley and, well, Justin Houston I can handle. And
There's a doozy.
what's it, Don Tarapo? I hate butchering names, I really do. But they're big guys and they're pass rushers. Do you remember what happened a few years ago with Brady against Kansas
Oh,
City?
who could ever forget the torn ACL?
The
That basically
Matt Castle year.
it killed the Patriots season, and yet they went 11-5 with Matt Castle, and look where Castle is now.
On IR.
He's on the IR with with the Minnesota Vikings, getting taken over by a rookie quarterback. So,
Right.
and you gotta believe the offensive line is way different from back in 2008. There was Logan Mankins was still on the team. Connolly was just starting out. So this offensive line is very different, and the way they've been performing, Brady might be on the ground way more times than in Oakland, Miami, and Minnesota combined.
Yeah. What I don't understand is what happened to Nate Solder. He was a number 1 draft pick for the Patriots. He's playing left tackle, and the reason why they got him is that he was quick enough to be even a tight end. But now that he's settled into his tackle position, he's getting beat by speed rushers all season long.
He's averaged below
I'm a
average.
little concerned about that. And I can't figure it out. And in fact, nobody can figure it out.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to see it from veterans like Soldier and like Connolly because they've been with the system for quite some time. You would think that they would have, with the more experience that they have, the better they would play. But, you know, Soldier's on the decline, Connolly's average. It makes you wonder.
Let's talk a little bit about their tight end, Patriots, kind of the safety valve for Tom Brady. Rob Gronkowski. And Gronk is
He was still limited, right?
limited, but getting closer and closer. Here's the thing. He got hurt in the 6th week last year. I think
Against
6th
Cleveland,
week.
I think.
Yeah, but it was the 6th week of the season.
Yeah.
So I would not expect Gronkowski to be 100% until the 6th week of the season. Even then, another year beyond that, if he can stay healthy, they'll be fine. But I want to see him play February 1st. I really
How
do. That's the
long
date of the Super Bowl.
Have we been saying if he can stay healthy, then we'll be fine?
Pretty much his entire career.
And he's been injury prone, and I really don't know at this point.
I mean, the thing with Gronk is like, he won't score you touchdowns, but he'll get you down the field. You know, he won't. We don't see the flashy plays that he saw.
He did score many touchdowns. He had
Yes.
more touchdowns by a tight end than anybody 3 years ago when he became the Gronkinator.
Right,
Gronk
and for the past
Oh, God.
and for the past 2 years, you know, with the injury-riddled season, he has not scored as much. But Brady has gone to him, you know, when it's not in the end zone, when it's in the red zone, because he has other targets like Edelman and Dobson and Amendola,
Hopefully
who
Dobson
we're still
will
waiting
play.
for.
Amendola is apparently
Who?
invisible to. I don't
Who?
know. Brady doesn't even know who he is.
Amendola. Is he dressed? Is he playing today?
Who's
basically
that? Who's that guy?
So what I'm trying to say, basically,
Say it, Joe.
is that Gronk will give you production. You know, it may not be the touchdowns and the giant spikes we see. That may not entertain us, but it gets the job done. And with, you know, if you have Julian Edelman, you know, you could go one or the other because Edelman is improving, Gronk is getting healthy.
We'll see.
Speaking of Edelman, could you imagine if the Patriots did not re-sign Julian Edelman?
No. No. It would not have been pretty at all.
I mean, who would Brady's going to nobody but Edelman and Gronk right now.
Yeah, and they signed, it was Brandon LaFell, and
He's been terrible.
he's not been terrible. He just hasn't been targeted that much,
Awful.
which means he hasn't been getting open. You know, and again, let's see what happens when Brady has time, because it still goes back to the offensive line and pass blocking. Now we haven't even talked about the running game with please hold on to the ball, Stephen Ridley. You know, well, just because you see him, I get. It's the first thing I
I'm holding
say
my
every
breath. Don't
every
fumble, don't
time.
fumble, don't
Really,
fumble,
every
don't
time he
fumble,
gets
don't
the ball,
fumble.
the next thing I go is please hold on to the ball. Please hold on to the ball. Just hold on to the ball.
And,
Yeah,
And he's a
but
good running back.
and I was throwing stuff at the TV last year against Carolina when he fumbled in the red zone. That was just horrendous.
Fumbled on the 3-yard line, I think, last year.
Yeah,
Oh,
but when you're looking at it,
it's
Stephen
terrible.
really has improved from last year. He's worked on holding on to the ball, and I don't think he's had any fumbles this year. You know, so
Yeah.
that shows a sign.
Yeah,
just
knock on wood.
Sorry,
Knock on wood.
That shows a sign that he's improving. Now with the run game, right now I look at Stephen Ridley as the only running back. I only see Shane Vereen more in the pass game more than the run game.
I think Shane Vereen's more of a third down back in the Kevin Falk mode.
Yeah.
But I like Shane Vereen's running style. I always have. I think, let me tell you, if I had to pick one guy to break a touchdown, it'd be Shane Vereen, not Stephen Ridley. But Stephen Ridley may be a better 10 to 15 yard
Yeah.
running back guy. Could be. I mean, we'll see again, just hold on to the football. That's all I care about. Hold on to the football. All right. So confident, not confident. You seem a little.
I'm rattled.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect from this team yet. I just don't, because I just think they're still
Maybe
a work
they'll
in
show us
progress.
something tonight.
Yeah, I hope so. And you know what? They like to play on national television.
Yep.
And, you know, that's always a great opportunity for them. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the Patriots is that we know they're going to make the playoffs. We know the AFC East is so weak, and they can easily get into the playoffs. The question is, like, where are they going to fall? Because we know they're going to win the division. The question is, are they going to be a 1 seed? Are they going to be a 4 seed?
Yeah, they're
You
gonna
know,
get the bye. Yeah.
Yeah, no one knows, because you got a tough Denver team. You got a tough.
Let me ask you, are they better than
Indianapolis
Denver right now? No.
No.
Are they better than Seattle right now?
No.
No. Are they better than, can't really tell about Cincinnati yet because they're 3-0 and they had a bye week, but I would even throw Cincinnati in
I
there.
would throw them in too.
For now.
And the answer is no.
Right.
Now we'll find out in 2 weeks
Not
how
even
good they
better
really
than
are, right?
Dalton and,
So, I mean, my feeling is right now the Patriots are still in that between 5 and 10th best team, but
Yeah.
they're evolving. They're going to be better
But they're
in
going
December.
forward. Yes.
They're going to be better in December than they are in September.
Better be
Long as they stay
figuring
healthy.
things out now than in December.
Right, as long as they stay healthy, and so far so good on that. For
Yeah,
health.
we know that was a big problem last year with the health.
Huge problem. Ridiculous. What did they lose? 7 starters last year?
I can't even remember there was so much.
Okay, so if you had to pick, and we know that Jimmy Myers doesn't like us to pick, but we're going to pick because it's fun, and no one's going to remember.
Pick it and
what we
stick it.
picked, right? You like the Patriots, yes or no? And not against the point spread, just I don't even know what the
You
point
know
spread
what?
is.
I think I like the Chiefs because
Okay.
the Pats O-line and Arrowhead.
Well, Arrowhead being a factor.
Well,
the
this
12th man.
it sounds like Kansas City will get the win. They're at home. The Chiefs fan are going to try and break the noise record. Their defensive line is incredible. But again, I say it, the Patriots find a way to win games, and I have a good feeling that they're going to find a way to win games. It may be sloppy like Oakland, or it may be terrific like in Minnesota, but I think Pats will get it done.
I hope you're right, Joe.
All right, so we have a Chiefs and we have a Patriots, and of course,
Tiebreaker.
I can only pick with my heart. I admit it. Okay,
Great.
I'm a homer. I can handle that. All right. So I think the Patriots will win as well. I don't know if it's going to be pretty or not. I certainly would like to see it be pretty, but I could see them winning by 10 points or more tonight. I really do.
Does Tom Brady get 219 yards for 50,000?
Yes.
Tom?
What was the question?
Does he get 219 yards so we can get 50,000 career passing team?
Sure.
All right.
Sure. Just go
All
along
right.
with it.
I'm going along.
219. If they're going to win the game, you want them to get
Yeah.
over 219 yards. I know you don't expect them to win, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's good to be proven
That's how
wrong when your
fans
team
feel
wins,
all
right?
over
Yes.
New England.
All right.
Optimistic.
All right, so I think we beat up on the Patriots and Chiefs pretty well and given you a little bit of a preview in our first 15-minute segment here. Now we're going to take a run through the NFL yesterday because it was indeed the 4th week of the season. A couple of notes before we get into the results and some of the games and what they mean. Some news of the day. It looks like the Buffalo Bills will be making a quarterback change. E.J. Manuel will be benched and Kyle Orton will start. Are you laughing that Kyle Orton will start, or just the fact that the Bills
Bills are just a mess.
they're just a mess?
And they look good 2-0.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happened?
Why?
They're the Bills. They just start out really good in the first couple of games. And by the way, great football fans in Buffalo. Great football fans in Buffalo. I'm glad that the team is staying there. And I think, and it's always been a great rivalry with the Patriots going back to the old AFL days. So as long as they stink when they play the Patriots, but they never do. They always play them tough. They
Yeah.
always play the Patriots tough. Morris Claiborne, cornerback for the Cowboys, out for the season with a torn patellar tendon.
That's a huge blow for the Cowboys.
Huge. Well, you know what? The Cowboys are one of the strangest football teams I've ever seen. And they have so much talent on that team, and they just can't get it done. And it never will with Jerry Jones running the play. I'm just not a big Jerry Jones fan. Sorry, Jerry. Like you care what I think. Okay. Teddy Bridgewater, the rookie, played yesterday for Minnesota, hurt his ankle. MRI comes back negative. Obviously, he'll be day-to-day, but chances are he'll play again on Sunday.
And he performed pretty well against Atlanta. Atlanta's got a tough D.
Okay, the other thing is just coaches being idiots. We don't need that.
Nope.
And let's move on to the roundup. So, Joe, you're going to start us off with the Dallas and hang on a second. I'm going to make a message here. This is good. Give us the Dallas thing.
All right, so the primetime game last Sunday night, Dallas Cowboys against a struggling New Orleans Saints just
Can you
got
call the
even
guest?
more.
Can you call my guest? He just called me.
And it's not gotten better for the Saints. They lost to the Cowboys 38-17. Basically, the Cowboys steamrolled over the Saints. You gotta think, the New Orleans Saints, they were supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. Now they're sitting at 1-3. I mean, let's look at what the Cowboys did.
Just hit his mobile number, Stan.
DeMarco
He might be
Murray.
lost. I don't know.
DeMarco Murray leading the NFL in rushing yards, 156 more yards. And Sean Payton for the Saints, he said he's widely regarded as one of the NFL's best game players and play callers. Obviously, what he's doing right now is not working, as the Cowboys just basically took over the Saints in the Superdome.
And the Saints are one of the biggest surprises negatively in the National Football League because a lot of people had them going, picking them to go to the Super Bowl. And by the way, at 1-3, they're not out of it.
Of course.
No.
You know, far from it. But they're certainly not playing up to their capabilities.
That's right.
Agree? Agree.
All right.
Tom Kelly, talk about Baltimore and Carolina. The Ravens go to 3-1.
The prodigal son returns, Jimmy. Steve Smith Sr. had 2 touchdowns for 139 yards in his big homecoming to stick it to the people who cut him. It was great because he's the definition of blood, sweat, and tears.
And was
I
surprised
love
didn't see
those.
that on the field. Didn't see the blood, sweat, tears, and guts.
And I believe he had a quote in the locker room like saying something like, "Oh, I ran around them like they were schoolyard kids."
Oh, burn.
Hey, he talked about it with the Ravens defense. You know, he said, we're basically like school bullies. We take your lunch money, we pick on you. That's how he wants the Ravens to play, and they did that.
Right.
And
we don't want to reinforce bullying at any.
Of course.
at any
No.
level. Okay.
Bullying's not good.
No, not good. I agree.
so,
All right.
long story short, the Ravens beat the Panthers 38-10.
All right.
A lot like the Franklin Panthers.
All right, we're all good. All right, let's go to Joe for Minnesota and
All right,
Atlanta.
So we brought this up earlier. Teddy Bridgewater getting his first career start, did leave with an ankle injury, but it didn't matter as the Vikings beat the Atlanta Falcons 41-28 as a rash of injuries for the Falcons basically took them over. Center Joe Hawley, guard Justin Blaylock, right tackle Lamar Holmes. They were all down, and basically they put a tight end in the offensive line, which is saying a lot.
Sounds like the Patriots.
Exactly. So, but the Vikings, they tied a franchise record 4 rushing touchdowns, and who's Adrian Peterson?
Who?
We don't need him because
Because
Matt,
he's a child abuser. That's why you don't need him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Matt Isiata is taking over his role, scoring 3 times.
What does that tell you about professional sports, though? Is there really that big a difference? If you have a hole to run through in the National Football League and you're a smart running back, you can run through that hole, whether your name is Asiata or Peterson, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody thinks Adrian Peterson's the greatest thing since Barry Sanders, and he's had a great career. But they haven't missed a beat. I don't think they'd be any different. I don't think their record would be any better than 2-2 if Adrian Peterson
If he was
Well,
playing.
they were talking about advancing the pass game because they relied so much on Peterson years back. That's what they kind of wanted to do with Castle, and now with Castle out, they basically got to restart with Teddy Bridgewater, and so far so good.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to is it the Niners in Philadelphia
Yes, it
with
is.
Tom Kelly? All right.
The San Francisco 49ers beat the Eagles, come from behind win, 26-21. And something interesting about the Eagles this game, no offensive touchdowns, just special teams and turnovers. They didn't their offense didn't pass midfield until the 4th quarter.
Right, and
What's-
this is Chip Kelly's, famed offense, right?
Yeah.
Not so much.
Just
When
a
you
bunch
play,
of
it
us-
just shows you again, a good defense is going to stop a good offense in football any day of the week.
And they just had 2 more first downs than turnovers in the 3rd quarter. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's certainly not
And the 49ers, they've just been playing sloppy.
Yeah.
Sloppy.
And the
Even though
49ers
they did get the win.
And the 49ers tripled the time of Eagles' possession. which is another crazy factoid.
Now that time of possession stat can work,
Well, basically,
can make sense.
it's basically
doesn't
sloppy. Special teams defense wasn't good. Kaepernick making mistakes. Like, there were so much mistakes. I remember watching this game. This was one of the games I paid attention to most. There was a play in the fourth quarter. Kaepernick was giving signals, had no idea about the time clock, and Harbaugh was livid. That just goes to show you that the Niners aren't on their game. This isn't, the 49ers that we've seen go to 3 straight NFC championships.
But they grinded it out, and they found a way to win.
And you know what? That's what good
And
teams
Frank
do,
Gore had
by
a
the
good
way.
game.
That's what Frank Gore had an amazing game.
Yeah.
And he's a great running back. I enjoy watching him. All right, next up, Joe, San Diego and Jacksonville. Blake Bortles.
Close
first
game.
start. Not so much.
Well,
How bad is
basically-
Jacksonville?
Well, I'm sure all you sports fans know around that basically anything with Jacksonville, the other team's going to win. As the Chargers beating the Jaguars 33-14. Phillip Rivers having once again another great game. But the biggest story, Eddie Royal scoring 2 of the first San Diego touchdowns, catching those 2 touchdowns, and that basically went off. Now, as for Blake Bortles getting his first career start, he was picked off twice, and he had to play catch up basically in the second half. But he only had 8 incompletions on 37 attempts. So that goes to show you that maybe this could be the future if Jacksonville can get some weapons for him.
Hey, here's a note. Greg Rosenthal, who wrote this, I believe, for ESPN. The Jaguars coaching staff looks ridiculous for playing Chad Henne for 3 games. Bortles makes Jacksonville so much better. They actually might win a game or 2. We'll see.
We'll find
Is
out.
Tampa on their schedule? Has anybody able to tell me, did Jacksonville play Tampa?
No, it's Jacksonville and Oakland.
All right, I know.
We'll get to Oakland later.
Yeah. I think I handle Oakland because they're in the I'll overseas that game. All right, next up, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. Probably the
there's-
biggest upset of the day.
If there's one word to describe this game, it would be awesome. Because,
Nobody
first of all,
likes Nobody likes the Steelers.
the team and the location in Pittsburgh, against Pittsburgh, fantastic. After getting the ball back in the last minute, Alex Smith threw to Vincent Jackson and for the touchdown with 7 seconds to go. Awesome. Like I said before, just plain awesome.
Well, this makes you
Who
think-
likes the Steelers?
I mean, I'm a fan of the
Pittsburgh.
Steelers.
What?
Pittsburgh.
I'm a fan of the Steelers.
All right,
I
all
like
right.
how they play. Now, the
Ripping
thing
off the
about
black
Tampa
and gold.
Bay is that, Josh McCown out with another game, is out with a thumb injury, and then they put Mike Glennon in, who threw it to Vincent Jackson, which, by the way, if you did not see that Vincent Jackson catch, you
It was
need to
sick.
check it out. You need to check it out. Now, this raises questions for Tampa Bay and on head coach Lovie Smith. Who would you start at quarterback? Would you take Josh McCown, who did excellent last year, replacing Jay Cutler? Or would you rather go with Mike Glennon, who led the comeback? It definitely raises questions.
Go with the hot hand. That's how you do it. All right, where are we now?
Lions, Jets.
Lions and the Jets.
Lions and the Jets.
It was 24-17. Basically, no Calvin Johnson for most of the game as he was nursing his ankle injury. But Matthew Stafford showed that he didn't really need him. But Rex Ryan, the biggest story right now, Rex Ryan announcing that Geno Smith is going to stay the Jets starter as opposed to Michael Vick. And the biggest story right now with Geno Smith is that he actually cursed at a heckling fan. We don't know if he'll get a fine or a suspension.
Oh, the poor baby.
I will go with a fine.
I think that was a certain finger salute, if you will, as
I
well
get
as
it.
some expletives too. And Geno Smith, acting, 23-year-old kid, he's like, I screwed up. Good that he took it. He took responsibility for it. He says, I'm 23. I make mistakes. I'm sorry. He lost it. It's frustrating.
Yep.
Anytime you're a competitor and you don't play up to the performance that you expect yourself
And if you're
to be,
caught in the heat of battle.
absolutely. And of course, now the crowd, New York, very patient people in New York.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Everybody loves them.
calling for Michael Vick. Do you expect Michael Vick to see some action at some point?
I mean, with what I've seen from the Jets coaching staff, no. Because I'm going to flash back to 2012 when Mark Sanchez started struggling. Everyone wanted Tebow. They didn't get Tebow. They stuck with Sanchez the rest of the way. With Rex Ryan and the coaching staff, I highly doubt that Michael Vick will be going in. Now, it will shock me if they put Michael Vick in for Geno Smith, because they still have to play the Patriots twice. They have got some tough opponents on their schedule, and if they want to win now, they're going to go with Michael Vick. If they want to say, oh, Geno Smith is our QB for the future, they're going to stick with Geno Smith.
All right, next game is my game. The Dolphins and the Raiders. Dolphins winning 38-14. And I believe it was Dennis Allen who once said, you are what you are. You are what you think you are. Right?
Yes.
Right?
And the Oilers,
the Raiders.
The Raiders
stink.
are horrible.
They've lost 10 straight games, okay? And here's a great stat.
They epitomize a terrible team. They are
Yes,
the
they do.
truly, absolutely terrible,
And
terrible,
Miami
terrible
goes
team.
to London and does what they have to do. It looks like Miami is going to be the team that will challenge the Patriots in the AFC East if that works out
Really?
that way. We'll see. Don't forget, Miami did beat the Patriots in
Yes,
opening
they
game.
did. They did.
So in order to, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head.
Yep.
So the Patriots have to win in Foxborough against Miami to offset that win in Miami earlier. All right, here's a great stat. Among coaches with at least 36 games, only 5 in NFL history have a worse winning percentage than Dennis Allen's 222. And no, I'm not going to ask you which 5 they are, because obviously they've been forgotten. I'm going to go out on a limb and think Rich Kotite was one of them, though. All right, let's move on. And we're going to go to me again.
Surprising
you.
Houston team.
Houston, another AFC East team. Buffalo Bills, they lose 23-17 to Houston. Houston Texans, maybe one of the surprise teams in the NFL this year, now at 3-1.
And just think when they get Jadeveon Clowney back, how more dangerous that defensive line is going to be. Let's look at J.J. Watt. Not only does he have an offensive touchdown, he had an interception touchdown last game. He's at the top of the list for NFL touchdowns among offensive players. So that just goes to show you how good J.J. Watt is. He can play on the offense as well as defense. And when they get Jadeveon Clowney back, that's going to be the two-headed monster that nobody wants to face.
And he's got a great commercial out right now for Isn't it
course.
Geico?
I believe it's Verizon.
What is it,
Verizon?
Verizon? I
Yep.
can't- You know what? Who knows? All I know is
It's a funny commercial.
Two dorky teachers dancing at the end
Yep.
of the commercial. I just remember that. Okay, let's see. Who's next? It's going to be Joe, I think, with Indianapolis and Tennessee.
All right, so the Indianapolis Colts arguably having their best game of the year, beating the Titans 41-17. Let's face it, everyone on the Indianapolis offense just went off. Andrew Luck, he is rolling. He is right now, I would say, my candidate for MVP. He's one of my candidates for MVP.
It's funny that I was actually listening to some sports talk radio today. What a shock. And
Really?
they were talking about some of the best quarterbacks in the league, and Andrew Luck's name didn't come up.
Really?
And I was like,
Who was it?
no, we don't have to go with the host, but who they mentioned? They mentioned Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
They mentioned Phillip Rivers, and they mentioned Peyton Manning.
Okay.
And
Where's Andrew Luck in
where's
that
Andrew Luck in
conversation?
that? Seems
He
to me
needs
Andrew
to be
Luck.
in this
Phillip Rivers
conversation.
is in there?
Well, Phillip Rivers threw for 370
Yeah.
yards yesterday or something like that. He had a big day. But Andrew Luck is the guy. He's the
Yeah.
future.
He
He
is
is
the
absolutely
man.
a future MVP.
He is the man for the Indianapolis Colts, and I have a feeling he will be a contender for the NFL MVP this season. Now, along with Andrew Luck having a good game, Reggie Wayne also went off, having a couple scores and a few 100 yards. And as for the Titans, they didn't have Jake Locker. They put in Charlie Whitehurst, but shockingly, that's not the reason why they lost. The Titans had the longest run of the game and committed a turnover on an interception that it really wasn't his fault. So basically right now the Titans are struggling, and there are many reasons why.
All righty.
Very aptly put.
And Green Bay and Chicago.
The old rivalry.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, the
there,
Green
Tom
Bay
Kelly?
Packers beat the Chicago Bears 38-17, and before the game, Aaron Rodgers told Packers fans, told Packer Nation, told the Cheeseheads to RELAX. Relax. And did he deliver? Yes, absolutely he did. He's 22 for 28 for passing with 302 yards. He wasn't
Four touchdowns.
4 touchdowns.
Four. That's a handful. Almost a
Almost a handful. That would be
but
5.
If you don't have a thumb, it's a handful.
Okay.
Sorry.
He wasn't pressured at all day. He picked apart the Bears secondary. It was just a fun day if you were a Packer fan.
And
Fun
speaking
day
of
if you're a
fun,
Packer fan.
speaking of
Jamie,
fun-
you a Packer fan? We have a Packer fan out
Speaking
there.
of fun fact: Aaron Rodgers has now passed 25,000 career passing yards.
And
That is a fun
do you
fact.
guys want to know what Jay Cutler did?
What did Jay Cutler do?
He was just Jay Cutler, very
Didn't
Jekyll and
really-
Hyde.
This is what I
yeah.
see. This is what I talked about with Jimmy Myers last week. If you remember last week, we were
I remember.
talking about
Yeah, I remember
Monday
too.
Night Football,
Yep.
Jets and Bears. The Bears need to start being consistent, and it starts with Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is not being consistent.
Jay Cutler
He
has
has
never
been
been
consistent.
That was really good. We didn't even practice that. That was well done.
So
Brilliant
and-
minds think alike. That
Yes,
was
they
fun.
do, Jay.
I mean, Cutler went off against the Jets, but he had a poor performance against the Packers. So, which Jay Cutler are we gonna see? Let's go back. Last year, they were eliminated on the last day when Aaron Rodgers came back and threw the touchdown to Randall Cobb. That's when they were eliminated. So it tells you a lot when the Packers had Matt Flynn and Scott Tolzien at quarterback. The Bears still couldn't get the division.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Great roundup, by the way. 30 minutes.
We're awesome.
15 minutes NFL roundup, 15-minute Patriots KC recap. That's how we're going to cut them up, so you don't have to watch 3 hours of this entire broadcast. You can actually cut it up. That's going to be my job, but I'll take care of that. And now I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Oh, curveball.
All right, little curveball. All right, we're going to talk about Major League Baseball playoffs or Rajon Rondo.
You know what? Rondo sounds more fun.
Let's talk about Rajon Rondo. The
Slipping in the shower, trampolines. We don't know. We weren't there.
Slip, sliding away. Slip, sliding away. That's Rajon Rondo, who's going to be saying goodbye to Boston very soon.
Well, it's going to be waving with the other
Well,
hand.
And it's definitely waving with the right hand, not the left hand. He broke his left
This-
hand, supposedly
This
slipping in the
census stock's
shower.
plummeting.
Do you believe it or not?
No, trampoline with his kids.
I really don't know, because
You weren't there.
I'll put it like this. This is the same way I looked at Aaron Hernandez's situation when it first came out. I was unsure, but then when more evidence came out, I realized, okay, this guy is not so good.
No.
This is
not
a
so
different.
good.
This is a different scale.
Completely
Yeah,
different
I
style,
think-
but I understand the idea of story breaks
Yeah.
and you're not
Yeah.
sure.
And I will admit it right now, I'm a fan of Rondo. I love the way the guy plays.
when
you know.
he plays, he's
And-
fun to watch.
Exactly.
But
And when he doesn't dog it.
And when he dogs it, he's not. He's
And
a
the-
bit of a head case. And
Basketball
everybody
version
in
of
the
Alex
league, by the
Kovalev.
way, knows this now, which means his trade value is practically nothing right now.
Who
And-
wants to trade for a guy like that? Is someone who's going to break his hand allegedly in the
I'll tell
shower.
you, a team that is already loaded could trade for him. I'm not going to say San Antonio's going to do it, but a team like San Antonio, because they're good without him.
Yeah.
Even the Lakers may want him, which would be really
Will
fun.
they be willing to take him off the Celtics hands?
I don't know.
I mean, the thing-
that depends on what they're going to give up.
The
And I know
thing-
Danny will wait until the last possible moment
Yeah.
to trade him, and it'll be the
Trade
trade
him,
deadline.
Now I'm looking
Certainly not
at a couple things, because right now with Rajon Rondo out, you got, I would say, two pretty good backups. The first rounder Marcus Smart and Phil Pressey, who showed huge improvements in his rookie season.
Yeah.
So I feel very confident with the point guard position while Rondo is out. But with Rondo, the thing I question about him is his commitment. Does he really want to be in Boston? I know he says he would love to be a Celtic his whole career, but let's face it, we don't know if that's going to happen. I think, Rondo being named the captain, can he take that responsibility? We're not sure.
Yeah.
I just think the commitment with Rondo has to be there, and he hasn't shown it, which is probably why he will be traded.
But here's my question: does a team captain skip out on a game to celebrate his birthday? No, being serious.
I understand. Does a team captain celebrate a birthday? Is that what you said?
No, does he skip out on a game
Oh, to celebrate
his
that
birthday?
like he did last year.
Yes.
No, he shouldn't have done that. Oops, he did though, didn't he?
Yes, he did. No captain. He's not captain material.
Yeah. It's really
But the
a
thing with the
shame.
Celtics is, who will you put as
You
captain?
don't have to worry about that. You
It's
don't.
just a letter on a jersey. It really
It's
doesn't.
it'll happen by osmosis if it happens. Do you get what I'm saying?
But I mean, you gotta think there's gotta be some kind of leader for the Celtics, and I don't think Jeff Green is the guy. I don't think Jared Sullinger's the guy.
I like
This-
Jared Sullinger.
Yeah, I like Sullinger
You
too,
know-
but I don't think he's a guy who can be a leader. He's like a guy who could be like the second star to a top star on a team.
The funny thing is, Jimmy Myers, who knows a lot more about basketball than I do, for sure, he likes Kelly Olynyk. And I can't figure it out because, first of all, I can't get used to the hair thing. I just can't. I mean, I like long hair. I used to have it once way long time ago.
The flowing red
The
locks.
flowing locks, but mine was more like Bozo. But I don't know what, I don't know what's going to happen with the Celtics. They make a trade. They got rid of Keith Bogans, which was
Who?
great. Right. Because it's like, was he on the roster last year? I mean, they had so many guys anyway.
Let me ask you guys a question because you guys know way more about basketball than I do.
All right.
Is another Tankapalooza coming up this year?
I wouldn't say they tank. I don't think they
I
tank.
don't like. First of all, let me talk to you about tanking.
Yeah,
no legitimate
I don't like it.
professional athlete can tank a game.
Yeah,
well,
I
I
don't-
know, but the front office can manipulate their roster.
But I don't like the idea of tanking.
I don't like it either. There's no guarantee.
yeah,
Look
okay.
at the Cleveland
I'm just-
Cavaliers have
I'm-
won a couple of draft
I'm just
first
saying.
round picks, and they've been, they weren't been the worst team in the league. So, what did they have, a 1.7 chance last year, and they
I
won?
believe so.
Oh, ridiculous. I don't think it's going to take.
And they
So
don't
the
even
Ce-
have their number one pick.
So the Celtics picked up like 4 guys that I've heard of Eric Murphy, but that's about it. I have no idea until I got to see these guys in preseason or in the game.
Yeah.
I can't judge. All I know is I still bleed green. I can't wait for the Celtics to come back because they will.
And you know what I believe, Jimmy?
What's that?
Black and gold.
I know you bleed. I knew that actually.
We'll get to that later. We'll get to
the
hockey
Bruins.
later.
We'll get to hockey. Don't let me forget hockey.
I-
Since we're going to go with the local thing, let's talk about yesterday at Fenway Park.
Oh my God.
True legend. Well, you're already rolling your eyes. All right.
Hey.
So Derek Jeter played his last game of his career, 20-year career, at Fenway Park yesterday. But it was before the game that the Red Sox really showed why Boston is a second-rate city to New York. Oh, I cannot believe I just said that. I'm sorry. It's true, though, when you see them. I mean, they went overboard.
Yes, because let me just preamble what I'm about to say. I love Bobby Orr. He's
I
one of the
love Bobby Orr,
greatest
too.
to ever play the sport of hockey. But
How would you like
hockey,
to get Bobby Orr in here on a Monday night?
That'd be pretty awesome.
I'm gonna
That'd be
ask.
dope.
I gotta make that call. But anyway, he shows up. Why?
I have no idea.
Captains.
Captains?
He was captains. That's
Yeah,
why
but-
Paul Pierce was there. It's like, why is Paul Pierce there?
But he's not even on the team anymore.
And that's right. And Pierce is from the LA. He doesn't like
So
the Yankees.
to me, this was Boston rules. Yeah.
No, but they don't rule. They ruled.
Yeah.
They
Yes,
overdid it. They blew it. They
went
really blew it.
overboard.
Okay, let's just put it like this. We all know Derek Jeter deserves the respect he's been
Oh,
given.
yeah.
Absolutely.
He deserves everything he's
I think he
been
was
given.
embarrassed. I really think he was embarrassed. I think the Red Sox embarrassed him yesterday.
On
Yeah,
purpose.
and the
Not on
funny
purpose.
thing
Please don't
was
tell
the
me that was
Sox
on purpose.
the Sox say they were gonna go low key.
That was not
This
low
is
key.
not low key.
Well,
it
it
was
wasn't a
quite the
flyover.
opposite.
Yeah,
They
now
didn't do a flyover with a Derek Jeter banner. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Now, unlike you guys, I'm actually a fan of the ceremony. You know,
Really?
it just goes to show like what captains can do. Because like Paul Pierce, the Celtics captain, Jason Varitek, the Red Sox
Mm-hmm.
captain, Bobby Orr, the Bruins captain, they all showed their appreciation for the true captain, Derek Jeter, saying,
Okay.
"Hey, you're more of a captain than we are." So. I like what the Red Sox did. I will admit they went a little bit overboard,
Did
but
they really need the song at the end? The R-E-S-P?
yeah, I will
Did
say that went a little far.
Did
I
they
just
need
I
the
thought that
natural?
was pretty
See, I thought the
awkward.
music, the 2 musical numbers, ixnay on the music A, because that was really made it really hokey.
But
Imagine if they
I will.
Imagine if Jeter was dancing and singing. Imagine that. They invited him to sing and dance with them.
Once again, Derek Jeter showing his true class by not lowering himself to the standards
Yes.
that the Red Sox put on display yesterday. Sorry.
Thanks,
Dr.
Larry.
Charles, I think
They
Dr.
needed
Charles,
viewers. They
you
needed
lost this
viewers
one.
for the terrible season they've had.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, and what you just said is very telling. They needed some kind of a celebration because it's been such a horrific year.
I mean,
And
look how
also
they
knew
ended
that
2012. They're in Yankee Stadium. They did nothing. You
Three
thought
quarters, was it 3/4 of the fans there were there for Jeter.
for Jeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I would have gone just for Jeter.
yeah,
Yeah. So.
and can you believe how he finished his career at New York?
Unbelievable.
Oh,
Couldn't
yes,
ask for
right.
anything better.
You
Couldn't ask
couldn't-
for anything
no, if
better.
you
Funny-
wrote that
funny-
script.
funny-
Go ahead. Say
Funny.
it. Good.
In sports marketing the other day, which is the class I take, this a Red Sox fan was yelling at this Yankees fan for saying that was staged. That was a lollipop pitch right down the middle. I was like, oh god.
Well, actually, I don't.
You think
I don't
conspiracy?
disagree. No, here's the thing. It's not a conspiracy. Go back to thinking like a professional athlete. Okay. Who was the pitcher that he singled against in New York? Anybody? Doesn't matter. Let's
yeah.
just say.
A Baltimore pitcher.
That's all. Baltimore
X.
pitcher. X, right. Robert? No, it doesn't matter. And he knows the moment.
Yeah.
He's in the moment, the pitcher is. And as competitive as he is, he also is going to say,
I want to give
my
it to him.
team's already in the playoffs. I know this is a big moment. I'm just going to throw straight heat. And that's all he did.
Okay.
So he didn't want to groove one, but it happened that way. And Derek Jeter got a base hit to win the game.
Hear that, Cam?
You couldn't have written
No, but
a better script.
here's what I'm going to argue is that this game was actually pretty important to the Orioles. They were fighting with the Angels to get home field advantage, so it's not like Baltimore just threw it away. They were actually competing for this. So to say that Derek Jeter got lucky, I'm not going to say it was rigged, but you couldn't ask for something better than to have a walk-off hit in your final career home game.
That's right.
It's from the
agree.
movie. It's from
That's
Hollywood.
right. He's had 7 walk-off hits in his career. First one since 2007, which I find very interesting. What's your impressions? I mean, there's been a couple of different people looking at different ways to look at Derek Jeter as far as like his career stats go, even though he was he has more hits than anybody else.
He has been the epitome of consistency, and those are my favorite players.
I agree, and any coach who coaches players wants consistent performance out of his players because he knows that means I'm going to get X out of my player. But, if you look at his stats, he's never been an MVP, although he was a World Series MVP.
Yeah.
He's never won a batting title, right? He's had Silver Slugger Awards for the most hits in baseball a number of times. He's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. But when they start looking at the greatest Yankees of all time, he's down on the list. I mean, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig. Those guys, if you look at their stats, it's incredible.
I don't think Jeter's making the Yankees Mount Rushmore.
No. Well,
Really?
that's a very interesting. That means you only have four,
yeah.
Right?
And you just named 4.
I know I did. That's very interesting. Of course, Whitey Ford, I think, had the best record in the World Series, too. So Yogi Berra was a great catcher for them.
Even?
Don't mention Billy Martin.
I said no. Mariano Rivera.
Oh, Mario. Oh, yeah, only the greatest closer of all time.
Oh,
yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't know you were that close to him.
I mean,
He's my friend. I know him. We're bros.
buddy.
I
We're
mean,
bros.
when I look at Derek Jeter, I don't really take him for the stats. I just take him as a person overall. He's just a great person. That's why, sports, they need people like Derek Jeter because he shows leadership. He shows commitment. He shows everything that a professional athlete can and should be. That's why I believe Derek Jeter is one of the greatest of all time. I mean, I won't put him on top 10 of all time, but I will definitely put him in top 20, top 30.
What about shortstop? I saw Ozzie Smith, Cal Ripken, even A-Rod
Top
in
10.
his prime.
Top 10.
Nomar. No. Where's Jeter in there?
I'm going top 10.
Top 10. Okay.
I think he was also a great defensive shortstop.
By the way, not a bad thing to be. You had Miguel
I mean,
Tejada during that
to
era,
play a
too.
shortstop for 20 years, he didn't play any other defensive position than shortstop. And to perform at that kind of level for 20 straight years, that's 2 decades playing at shortstop, is very impressive.
Well, and I think one of the reasons why he did that is when they traded or got A-Rod, they didn't want to move Jeter out of shortstop, even though everybody knew that Alex Rodriguez was a better shortstop than Derek Jeter at that time. So now, reverse it. A-Rod goes to third, and according to Joe Girardi, will be there next year. I don't know. Do you expect to see A-Rod back next year?
No.
Do you want to see him back?
I want to see him back because I want steroids in baseball to make it exciting again.
Steroids in baseball with you, Tom.
You go, Tommy. You say it, buddy. That's what you want. I don't
what
see
I
any
want.
reason why we can't do that.
Baseball doesn't need A-Rod. I'm gonna say it right there.
No.
He will
I
come
know.
back, but I don't want him to
I
come
don't.
back.
I don't know. What kind of shape is he going to be in?
It's gonna be
That's the
fat,
question.
isn't it?
He's going to get hurt because he's not on any of the HGH or any of the other stuff that he's been on, right?
Yeah,
And as soon as he gets hurt, he should just retire. Anyway, all right, we're in the home stretch.
Why don't we get the actual baseball games in?
Let's get the actual baseball games in. That's what we're going to do.
Oh, yeah, let's do
Oh, wait,
it.
one more thing. One more note in the
more
regular
note?
season before we go on to the postseason.
Do we have-
Jordan Zimmerman's no-hitter for the Washington Nationals.
oh, first one in Nats history.
First one in Nats history. Great team, the Nats. I mean, they have a great fan base there, including my brother Mark, who's a season ticket holder, and loves to go. In fact, takes
Mark.
my dad.
Mark, fix me up.
You want to go?
Yes.
Will you push my dad to the game because he's 90, okay, and he still goes to baseball games because he's still sharp as a tack, but he needs to be in a wheelchair. Otherwise, it'll be 3 hours later when we get there. Anyway, great catch by Steve Souza in left field.
Oh,
By the
yeah.
way, as great as Yaz's catch in '67 when Billy Rohr almost threw a no-hitter, but you read about it or you saw it
We
in
read
black and
about
white
it.
films. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, we have.
Isn't it funny though? Every no-hitter always has
It's
that
always
one
got the
great play.
spectacular
but that was
play.
the last out of the game. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. finish.
Unbelievable.
And I guess that's why baseball has survived, because
Because you
it's-
still see the
you
incredible,
still
the
see something
fantastic
you've
within the
never
mundane.
seen before, even though they played thousands,
You know,
millions of games.
It's kind of that fantastic within the mundane.
right, because there's no clock, there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just baseball's all right. It's all right, even though your generation doesn't like it too much.
Gen Y.
Yeah. Okay. Gen text.
Gen Y.
Okay, fine. So there's baseball tomorrow. One game, play-in games, Tuesday and Wednesday. Oakland and Kansas City. Old friend John Lester against James Shields in the Oakland KC game. And I'll tell you, the only way the Red Sox get immediately back into contention next year, if they've dropped $300 million on Lester and James Shields. And that's probably not
Nope.
going to happen.
Absolutely not.
Well, if
Probably
you
not going to happen.
if you told me back in June,
But imagine that starting line. But imagine that.
Oh, that'd be
those two.
amazing.
they have
at
plenty
the
of
top
money
be
lying
amazing.
I
around.
was gonna say,
Why
what do
not
they
spend
care?
it?
They've already got the
You got fans who pay the highest ticket prices in
tickets,
baseball.
baby. Jeez, Tommy, you and I are on the same
Yeah, we-
vibe, man.
We
I'm
got
just the
something.
outsider,
We've
people.
got ESPN
We're wicked
going
smart.
I'm just the outsider, people. Now, the thing I look with Oakland,
ahead.
if you told me in June that the Oakland Athletics would be a contender, I would say, oh yeah, you got it right. But if you told me that now, I can't even see them getting out of the wild card game.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
I think
the
it's-
offense has struggled so much since they got rid of Cespedes.
Yep.
I mean, with all the power that they had to begin the season with Donaldson and Vaught and Moss and Norris, their offense was incredible. Now you get rid of basically their only power hitter in Cespedes, and the offense has gone flat. They got taken over by the Angels. So if you were to ask me, I would take Kansas City in this game.
So at the deadline, they basically shot themselves in the foot.
I would say that as well.
Wow.
But if they really shot themselves in the foot, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. They almost lost it to the Mariners, but luckily they were able to survive.
Well, again, it's in Kansas City. By the way, certainly the sports hub of the universe over the next 48 hours. They've got the Patriots-Chiefs Monday Night Football game, and now they've got the play-in wild card game. So that's kind of cool.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that same complex, by the way, Arrowhead and Kauffman Stadium, I believe. are
They're right
next to-
across
Oh,
the
yeah.
street from
I
each
bet-
other.
Basically,
from Arrowhead.
every other city is like that except for Boston.
Well, first of all, those two stadiums are 45 minutes outside of the city.
Yes.
So let's just say, okay, if Boston did that, but they wouldn't do that.
They wouldn't, no.
They want it
It's
in
not
the
the right,
city.
yeah.
That's right. All right, how about Wednesday, San Francisco at Pittsburgh? You guys got that pitching matchup, right?
That's going to be huge. Madison
Tom
Bumgarner, Edison Volquez, that's going to be like, it's a toss-up for
Don't you
me.
think I got to go with Pittsburgh? I love the Pirates.
Feel good story.
Yeah, because they're I like Andrew
And they did the
McCutcheon.
same thing last year. They ended their playoff drought. They beat the Reds in the playoffs, but then unfortunately they lost to the Cardinals, who would go to the World Series, get beaten by yours truly, the Red Sox.
Again.
So
Oh, the good old days.
yeah, so
Again.
this
Did
is
that
a
really
toss-up.
happen? I thought that
I
was
don't
a dream.
remember.
Every once in a while, I put that DVD in and I go, how did they win this?
How did
that team win this?
Yeah,
They
so
got every break. possible.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so with San Francisco and Pittsburgh, they're pretty much even. Their offense is great. They have excellent defensive players. Like I said, it's a toss-up. I'm really not sure. I mean, I would love for the Giants to go in because let's face it, they're one of the most inconsistent teams out there. They would win the World Series, then they would miss the playoffs, then they would win the World Series again.
They're on off.
So, I mean, again, I'll reiterate, toss-up for me.
all right.
It's a toss-up for me as well. Everything that Joe just said. Because I'm smart.
Yeah, you know to go with Joe. All right. Who are the two teams? So the winners of those two games move on to play. San Francisco-Pittsburgh winner plays the Washington Nationals, and the Oakland-Kansas City winner plays the LA Angels. Who do you guys like coming out of the World Series? And remember, we are taping this. So if you are right, we will date it and give you full credit. We won't give you, and I'll give you, maybe
Money?
give you hamburgers.
All right.
Oh, no money.
Monchista.
Well, you know what? Pick it and stick it, no predictions.
No.
Oh, you've gotten into the Jimmy Myers? Really?
It's Mr. Myers.
No
right.
predictions.
All right. Well,
all right.
I'm gonna make my prediction,
Go ahead.
unlike Tom. Basically, it's probably one of the most even fields out there. I mean, you have the definite contenders out there, but then you got the sleeper teams like the Nationals and the Orioles. You got the struggling Tigers and Athletics. You got the Dodgers, who have been very consistent. The Cardinals making a late charge in the Central. I've got two possibilities. But the one I would most like to see, and this is going to be my prediction, I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Angels over the Los Angeles Dodgers.
That would be
Angels,
a good match.
Dodgers, or Orioles, Nationals.
We all root for the Orioles.
So we're gonna have. I really
Dan Duquette?
believe.
Go Dan.
Go Dan. Good luck, Dan. I believe that it's going to be two teams from the same area television market or so. Even though LA and Anaheim and LA is the same market, and Baltimore and Washington's the same market. I just think that would be again something I've never seen before. I mean, Oakland and San Francisco had played in a World Series during the earthquake, but this is where I think it's going to go. So it's any combination of these four teams. How's that? Angels, Dodgers, O's, Nats.
I like it.
Good. All right, so we've got it pretty much NFL. We've got everything there. There's one team we forgot to talk about in Boston, and they're getting closer and closer to opening day.
Oh,
it's
can't wait.
Tom's
I can
favorite
hear
team, the Boston
Hear the goal horn
Bruins.
now.
And they're in preseason.
Yes, they are.
And the news of the day is
They re-signed restricted free agents Torrey Krug and Riley Smith to 1 year, $1.4 million contracts.
very good, and they had to do this.
Yes, they really had to, because
Right.
who can replace Riley Smith, your second line forward?
Right, and who can replace Torrey Krug, who has
Who's been your catalyst on your power play? He's
Yeah.
resurrected your power play from the bowels of hell.
He's a great passer. He's
Oh,
fast. He's creative. I like a rushing defenseman. Of course I do.
And
because-
Peter Chiarelli, what is wrong with offensive talent on your hockey team?
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. What a novel idea. You mean to put the puck in the net there?
Yeah.
That's
I know
that's
it's a
the
hard
idea.
I know it's a hard concept, but yes.
Is Louis Eriksson ever going to show something?
I don't think so. I think he's a third line forward. That's what I think
Wow.
he is.
Could have a breakout year.
He could, yes, but that's a faith argument. That's a hope. That's hope.
And
I'm going off of what I've seen so far. Basically, ever since his rookie year when he scored, I think 40 goals, his numbers have been declining.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you this, Tom, because
Sure.
we know the Bruins were eliminated by the Canadians.
Yep.
And we've seen many offseason acquisitions by the Canadians and by the Bruins, whether they lost people or gained people.
Yeah.
Do you think the
didn't pick 'em.
Canadians have the ability, or I should rephrase that.
Okay.
Do you think the Bruins are good enough to get past the Canadians?
That is a great question. At this juncture, what I saw in May, I'm going to say no. The Canadians have a better team than the Bruins, and it showed. That series brought out the worst in the Boston Bruins. Just horrible. Taking the cheese, went for the extra stuff after the whistle. It was just an eyesore. And the Bruins didn't really do anything to better themselves or to get any more offensive talent. In fact, they lost offense.
Yeah, I don't like what actually nothing happened really positively for the Bruins in the offseason. I
Yeah,
don't think they've
not
improved
really.
this team at all.
And that's because Peter Chiarelli loves his roster. He loves Brad Marchand. He loves Chris Kelly. Why? What is the obsession with Jordan Caron? He has scored 2 goals in the last 4 years. Tell me, why is he still on this team?
I don't know. Maybe
We
we'll
should
have
get
to get him
Chiarelli
on the phone. That's right. We'll have to get him on the phone. I promised you a Cam Neely interview too. I want you to stay on me on that. Okay?
All right.
I really do. I want you to stay on me on that.
I think I might have like really kind of blew out the microphone.
No, don't worry. It's only Jamie's ears. When's opening day for the Bruins?
I think it's October 8th or the 7th against the Philadelphia Flyers. It's on a Wednesday. It's on NBCSN, Wednesday Night Rivalry.
Yep, Wednesday Night Rivalry, and that'll
Tune
be
in,
coming up
folks.
A week. Is that a week from Wednesday? Like 2 days from now? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's here.
10
It's
days.
coming. I cannot wait. It's going to be great.
Just
We'll see.
Dropping out of bed.
Just wait till the Bruins season. He'll go off.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see hockey again. You know, just
It's been so long.
That's right. All right, guys, you did a great job. Last word on the Ryder Cup. I feel so. I'm the golf guy here.
I'm a
I'm
golf
not a
fan as
golf
well.
guy.
I know you're not a golf guy. You can take
All right,
the rest
stay
of,
out of this
take
one.
the rest of the show off.
Okay.
There's only about a minute anyway.
Let's just face it.
Very
The United States needs to get better golfers. They've lost to Europe 3 straight times, and I can't remember the last time they won in Europe.
Yeah, well, the last time Tom Watson was the captain of that team. And again, they didn't play Phil Mickelson on Saturday, and that ended up biting them. And that's what I think cost. That being said, you know, you said something just now. The Americans need to get better golfers. No, they don't. They have plenty of good golfers. What they need is actually to work on their alternate shot. They don't practice that ever. And I don't understand how they expect guys to go out and just automatically play alternate shot. They should have like a pre-Ryder Cup tryout or something.
Yeah, and it's
Because
kind
I
of-
don't think the system that they're using to pick this team, the automatic team, is working.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
it's kind of funny because all throughout the year it's been about individuals. Now when you get to the Ryder Cup at the end of the year, everyone's got to work as a team, and they're more concerned about their individual process. I mean, you could have Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. You could have Tiger, who shot a poor shot.
Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson will never play together.
Right, but we're talking, you know, theoretically.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
Tiger has not been good with his drives. He puts a bad drive. Phil Mickelson has not been good with some fairway shots. You know, when you put those two together, you need to have you got to plan it out right. You got to plan your pairings right. I mean, you could have the great driving of Jordan Spieth, and you could have the excellent putting of Keegan Bradley.
Well, and he had Mickelson and Bradley in that first day, and they beat McIlroy and Garcia. And then we didn't see those two again. Big mistake. You know, you play the hot hand, don't you, Tom?
Yes, you do.
What's happening with your hair?
Is it
An
sticking
alfalfa
up?
thing.
He's gone
Yeah,
Bruins
yeah.
crazy, people.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for the K Sports podcast. I don't know. Let's see if we did the hour. Oh,
Almost
right on the
there.
nose, boys and girls.
Let's get
All
some-
So, Joe did a great job. Tom, did you enjoy this?
Yes, I did.
A little bit different than
Good
being in
time.
the studio, right?
Yeah.
All right. That's all
Nice
good.
restaurant setting.
You get to go now and have a little dinner.
All right.
Both you guys. Thank you. Joe Braverman, Tom Kelly, I'm Jimmy Young. I'm going to actually read a couple of commercials while I get Jimmy Myers in here. And then we're going to go for another 2 hours. And I'm going to be absolutely exhausted by the time kickoff happens.
That's why Jimmy Myers is more predominant when he gets on a roll.
Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that? I have 30-second answers and he has 4-minute answers. But he's
4 minutes?
he's been. Oh, sorry. Anyway, guys,
Stay
thank you
tuned for
again.
that, folks.
Always a
No
pleasure.
problem.
Joe Braverman, Tom
Glad to be
Kelly.
on.
Give him a nice round of applause. Thank you very much. Have a good dinner. Go enjoy Mr. Myers. You're coming on in. And we're just going to keep it going here at the Knobscott Cafe in Framingham. I'm Jimmy Young, and I've been in the chair for Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Myers and Young Sports Talk Show. I'm Jimmy Young, along with Mr. Jimmy Myers. How are you today, Jimmy?
Good to see you, young man.
Always a pleasure. And we are twin brothers, different mothers. We talk sports here every Monday from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Knobscott Cafe in Framingham. We just wrapped up an hour-long sports talk show with two of my young sportscaster proteges, Joe Braverman and Tom Kelly. And I just love talking to the kids, Jimmy, because they have so much time on their hands. They know so much more about stats and the different teams. It's like those days are so over for me, and I love listening to them.
Well, the best part about these young people, as I call them,
Yes.
is the fact that they're getting into the business. They're becoming young sportscasters. A couple of nights ago, I had a chance to go back and look at a show that we were doing called The Sports Professors. And I had a chance to look at some of those tapes, and I mean, it's hard for me to watch myself. It always is, because I'm super critical of my work. But at the same time, it was so much fun listening to some of the dialogue and commentary and the things that we were doing. And it also took me back to Young Broadcasters of America, which I still think was a vision or something that was way ahead of its time. And I hope that one day we'll find a way to get it back, because I don't think there's anything better than working with young people. I just don't. I just think that the greatest thing in the world is when you're imparting that knowledge that you've gained under me and I've gained under other people, to be able to pass that on to the next generation of sportscasters. I think it's great.
It is great, and it's very rewarding. And that reminds me, I have to write another college recommendation. TJ, don't worry. I know what my deadline is. I'll get it to you before you need it, okay? And that's one of the most fun things I get to do, is
Really?
write, college recommendations
Yeah, I
for
think
these
they're
kids.
great.
Because
Yeah.
I always try to remember something that they did that will serve them well, not so much in their sportscasting career, but in life. And that's what I found more than anything else, is the skills that we learned as broadcasters and how transferable many of them are to the real world. We journalists are storytellers. We told stories. You, of course, very objective. Me, objective when I got paid to be objective, and subjective when I didn't. Anyway, that being said,
Here we go.
storytellers. Okay, that's where I was going.
But-
as our salespeople,
But can I ask-
salespeople tell
can I
stories.
ask you one
Politicians, lawyers. I'm just going on and on and on.
That's true.
They all tell stories.
But let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
When you first came
To
under
you?
my tutelage,
1977. For those of you who are
but
scoring
you were,
at home.
You were never a kid. So when are we going to let them grow up too and say young people? Because that's what they are.
I know. You get. And by the way, I write young people now
Good.
all the time.
Good man.
Okay,
And it was
I
young
st-
broadcasters of America. It
I know.
wasn't kid broadcasters
I
of
understand.
America.
I understand.
So let's let them be
and I know
young people.
you've never liked the kids thing.
No.
And to me, I have kids that are like 30 years old. Anybody who is old enough to be my kid could be my kid. That being said, we're moving on to young people,
Thank
which
you.
is under the age of 18.
Okay.
When they become, because at
Works
18
for
they
me.
become adults,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Technically by law they do. But
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Technically by law, and Lord knows a lot of people, Jimmy, don't think I've ever grown up. So what can I tell you? You know, the Peter Pan syndrome. Anyway,
You notice I'm not going there.
I was
I'm
gonna say,
leaving
you're
that alone.
biting your tongue
I'm
right
doing
now.
the best I can just to let that go.
Yeah.
Let it flow and let it go.
For those of you who don't know how far back we do go, we mentioned 1977. I was a junior at Tufts University when Tony Bennis came to me after I ripped up my ankle for the second time at Tufts and wasn't going to play soccer that year. And he said, well, what are you going to do with your time? And I said, I have no idea. And he says, how would you like to produce sports at Channel 4 in Boston? I was like, I don't know anything about television. He goes, no, but you know sports. And I go, of course I know sports. Of course I do. We all love sports, right? And he said, well, you'll be working with Jimmy Myers. And they go, calling all sports Jimmy Myers? That Jimmy Myers? Yes.
Yeah, that Jimmy
I go,
Myers.
that's what it is, Jimmy Myers?
Yep.
I'm in. And then he said the best thing. You get college credit.
On top of all of
You
this,
get college credit
God
to
bless
watch
Tony
sports on
Bennis
TV.
wherever you are.
I
God
was
bless
like-
you, Tony.
I was like, sign me
but
up.
think about it. Think about it. You got to do something that created a career for you.
Oh, my God, totally.
A 30-plus year, close to 40-year career.
Yes,
You
sir.
had all the fun that you wanted, and this came from you being injured and just saying, well, gee, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Right.
Okay, we're going to let you do something else. I'll do that. And believe it or not, you get college credit.
That's great. It was great. God love Tufts University.
Hey.
Thanks, Dad. Anyway.
Thanks, Tony.
That's right. Thanks, Tony, too. The funny thing, when I went to Tufts, I wanted to be a teacher and a coach.
Okay.
Most influential people
And
in my
look
life
what
besides
happened. You became a teacher and a coach.
during my broadcast career.
You still became a teacher
There are
and a coach.
so many young people,
Yes.
they were young people when I first met them, that are now in the business. In fact, one of the first
Greatest reward, Jimmy.
one of the first interns I ever had in Portland, Maine in '84, I want to say, was a guy named Norm Carcass. And Norm has been the main news anchor at Channel 8 and ABC affiliate up in Portland, Maine for over 15 years now. I think he did some of the Portland Sea Dogs games. I mean, he's become a big shot, basically. And he was my intern, and to this day, he still credits me for giving him that broadcast bug. So the virus you gave me, broadcast
passed
bug, okay, I have
To a
since
lot of
passed
other
it on.
people.
It is.
There are too many young people out there that are still in the business, that they're too far and too many to mention. And I think of all of them, what they're doing, how they're doing, and I always pray that they're half as happy as I've been in the business over all these years. That's all. I just say I hope that they're happy in what they've chosen to do, and that this career, which I always think is without a doubt one of the best you could ever have, that it provided some life experiences, some much joy, and a feeling of accomplishment every day that you've done something that you wanted to do. That's all.
Right.
And besides that, I don't think of many other aspects of it other than what it's done and what it's created.
And you know what? And I got back to Boston, which was always my career goal, was to prove to myself that I could be as good as anybody in the market when I first entered the market and when I was watching. And then I really got tired of it. I really got to the point where it's like, you know what? Scores and highlights, Brady versus Bledsoe for 5 hours. Does it really matter? It's entertainment for us. It's a big business. But I really wanted to do something to give back.
And you have.
And now
But
I
see,
have.
For me, it was different. It was a question of being denied, even still being denied to this day, of opportunities because of being an outspoken person of color, being a person that is labeled for being a certain way. And I think that's sad because I think that the audience lost a lot in not having my voice in certain instances. But even today, I still see the influence, and I see where people are still so far behind us in what we're doing here. We'll mention something, and 2 weeks later, I'll see it on the air. Perfect example was today. One of the rare times I got a chance to watch ESPN in the afternoon, they were talking about how unfair it is for Tom Brady to be operating behind this offensive line. We were talking about that 2 weeks ago. We were 2 weeks ahead of this, and the fact that the Patriots would not spend the money to protect this guy this late in his career. So, it's just so many things, and so many times I'll sit down and I'll watch these younger sportscasters, and I'll ask myself, are they really into this, or are they more interested in hearing their own voices, getting paid a lot of money, making sure that there are figures out there in the world instead of just doing their jobs?
I think they do their jobs, and especially people at ESPN. I know we'll have a disagreement about that, but I really do.
No, it's not a disagreement. It's just a difference in philosophy.
Yes.
It's just that the people that run that place basically are, since Disney brought them, they are still more interested in the entertainment aspect than the quantity and quality of what they're putting on sometimes, and the input. Whereas you have guys that are, and I'm not going to mention any of your names because you're not really that important to me, but I know the people that run.
Oh, mention their names.
No. I know the people that sit in the room every single day and let's go over what we're going to do tonight, and they really don't have a clue as to what these athletes, what these situations are truly about. So they try to come out with a spectacular view of, let's draw some listeners and let's make sure, since we're the quote unquote, what do you call it? The
worldwide
network
leader in
of
sports.
Whatever. And they don't really have a clue as to what really is going on out there in that world, in the street. They don't have street cred. They just have initials that says ESPN. So I can slap ESPN on you. I can slap ESPN on this sign. I can slap ESPN, and automatically somebody's going to watch. No, that's not what it's about. It's about being accurate. It's about being on time. It's about looking at a bigger perspective as to not where we are, but what this situation will mean. How badly they handled the Ray Rice situation, how badly other situations are handled, and the fact that you have a network contract with the NFL, which means we can't say certain things. Certain guys will be suspended. I understand another ESPN announcer just
Bill
got
Simmons.
suspended. Yes, because he called Goodell a liar.
No.
Something like that. What was
He
it?
dropped a few F-bombs during his
Whatever.
podcast.
Okay, yeah, but okay. But he also called the commissioner a liar.
And he
in that.
could be proven to be a liar.
And if he is,
He
then
should be gone.
all of a sudden, no, this guy becomes, well, he's prescient. He was way ahead of it. Well, F-bombs deleted, maybe he's not suspended. But what I'm saying is that, no, you're not supposed to use that type of language on the air. No, we're not supposed to do that. That's not what we're here to do. But once we have evidence sitting in front of us, it is our job to put it out there and let people know what we're supposed to be doing.
All right.
We're-
So-
The image problem is already out there now. The bad image problem that was allowed to fester and get to this point has already indicted the league.
and justifiably so.
Yes, no
Okay.
question of that.
Does Roger Goodell survive this? Let me put you this. Let's do. And I hate hypotheticals, but we're gonna do it anyway.
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
Robert Mueller finds that videotape was at the NFL headquarters and received by them, and he has been lying to the American public since then.
Yes.
He can't survive.
Don't say can't, because remember, there is an arrogance that pervades in this league with these owners that they think that they're bulletproof. They can do whatever they want to do. And if they want to keep him bad enough, they'll paint the picture the way they want to. They'll use their money and their PR firms to paint this picture. Well, he lied, but he really didn't mean it. Or he lied, but he really saw the tape, but he didn't see the tape because he had sunglasses on. Or he lied, but Batman flew in with the tape, and then Iron Man took the tape out. They'll come up with anything to make these gullible fans believe that no, yes, no, yes. And once you create confusion, Jimmy, that's the key. All defense lawyers
It's like
will tell you
reasonable
this.
doubt.
All defense lawyers will tell you this. All we have to do is create a reasonable doubt. And once we create that reasonable doubt, we have a chance of winning. I'm not saying that reasonable doubt is the right approach to do something, whereas prosecutors have to feel we have to go with the facts. We have to put the facts on the table and then let them muddy up the waters, the defense attorneys. And Roger Goodell has his own attorney sitting there along with these other owners and their attorneys, and they're all saying, okay, how do we save this guy's $40 to $50 million a year job? When we know, we're not stupid, and we know that the public knows. So how are we going to smooth this along, paint this beautiful picture, and then say, that's the Mona Lisa, that's what really happened? And then everybody says, I hate to tell you, that's not what really happened. So, you know.
Here's something that you probably haven't heard before about this, and I was actually talking about this earlier today with some family members. The videotape that everyone saw with the big TMZ logo burnt on it was not, and I'm going on, I know this for a fact because I'm just I'm interpreting it. I don't know this.
Okay, you know
I'm interpreting this based on my knowledge of video.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that video was shot on a phone camera of the actual tape that was sent.
Okay.
That was in the hands of the law enforcement people in New Jersey,
Okay.
who did finally, they have that tape. They have the original tape from the camera, because it existed, obviously, but the video that was released by TMZ, I believe, was shot on a camera, and then TMZ went, hey, I got this great video, you want to see it? And they'll pay for that, and they
This
did.
thing is taking on a life of
I think
Watergate.
that's true. Yeah.
Watergate proportions.
That's right.
I mean, was it
18-minute
shot on
gaps.
this? Was it
18-minute
shot on
gaps.
that? Was it shot on a regular camera? Was it shot on an Ikegami? Was it shot on a Suzuki?
Ooh.
The bottom line is this.
Ikegami
the
and
tape
Suzuki.
is there. It cannot be denied what you saw. And then
Right,
as they started to slow down the tape, they took you outside the elevator when Ray Rice spat at this woman first, then got you on the elevator, then he spat on her again. So all of this is sitting there in front of you. Now, if you're a person sitting in the jury of Goodell, and you see this, and you just ask yourself a couple of questions, and these are very, very easy questions. I am the person in charge of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, not multi-million, a multi-billion-dollar corporation. An incident occurs within my purview, within the scope of what I'm supposed to handle. Now, I have brought the two parties that are involved in this into my office, sat them there, and talked to both of them. And I have to make the world believe that I did not see this incredibly damning piece of video after talking to them, and I have to make the world believe that I knew nothing about the existence of this video and I didn't see it. And it's my company. Well, I'm the CEO, because that's all he really is. He's the CEO. And all of these owners and everybody says, well, you know, you gave him a 2-game suspension, then you came back with double jeopardy once this video was given out. And you still have to convince the world that you knew nothing about the existence of this, you knew nothing about this tape, and that you never saw it. It just doesn't wash, Jimmy. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
I agree 100% with you, and I do think ultimately it will be proven that videotape was there. Roger Goodell knew it and has been lying and spinning it.
You have voicemails saying that it was there.
That's right.
You have people saying, yes, I saw it.
Who
It
is
was
that
despicable.
voice?
Yeah.
Who is that voice? That's what I want to find. It's a female voice. I know
hope-
it wasn't
Let's
me.
hope she's still alive.
Well, that's just it. I hope
never know.
she's still
Maybe
alive.
they just pushed her. Listen, your voice will not be heard again, and we do
right.
not want to identify
Oh,
who you
yeah.
are and so forth. In a court of law, do you realize they would bring her up and say, is this your voice? Well, we have 15 experts to say that this is your voice. Yes, it's mine. Okay, did you say this is despicable? Yes, I did. Do you think that Paul got the... No, I don't think that Paul got the tape because I don't know what happened to the tape after that. I'm using my female voice.
No,
too,
it's
anyway.
Mr. Bill is who you're using.
Well, whatever. I'm addressing my female side.
Okay, go ahead.
And I cannot believe that I'm sitting here in court. Well, my $60,000 or $80,000 NFL job is now gone. And I'm sitting there going, now who do we believe? Do we believe this woman who received the tape, saw it, spoke about it, and said it was despicable? This is disgraceful. Or am I going to believe the person who this tape inevitably would have had to be shown to? This is like, okay, if there's a dead body there, and I'm the person that's standing over that dead body, And then I'm brought into court, and someone asked me, "Did you see the dead body?" And I'm going, "I didn't know it was a dead body, but was there a corpse there?" Yes, there was. Now, you were the person involved in this, and you were the person that was in this vicinity. You stepped over the body or whatever. It doesn't work, Jimmy. It just doesn't work. We all know that in a corporation, certain things of this magnitude, they cannot be glossed over. There is no way that the boss doesn't get to see this.
I agree, 100%. So who's going to win tonight? No, we're going to get to the Patriots-Chiefs afterwards.
We'll get to that.
I do see that Dan is here.
Let's get to him.
Dan Leibowitz is the executive director of the
Let's get to
Northeastern
him.
University Center for the Study of Sport and Society. Hey, Joe, see the guy with... Say hello to him.
The
and
guy
bring-
with a head like mine.
Yeah,
He
that's
looks.
it.
He's
That's
trying
right.
to. He's trying to be a twin brother.
We're going to go to the bullpen. We want the right-hander.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
We want the right-hander to come in from the bullpen. And by the way, great crowd here at the Knobscott Cafe in Framingham. Come on down. I'm staying to watch the Patriots because the Patriots do play the Chiefs. And you know what? This is going to be the first game all year I'm going to get to watch from start to finish. Dan, good to see you. Jimmy Myers, Dan Leibowitz. Have a seat, Dan.
Jimmy Myers is a legend. I'm just
You come on. You think? How do you think I feel? I'm between two legends.
just me.
All right, you're good. This is a very sensitive microphone, so anything you say will be fine. You can't see it, but it's there.
I can't see a thing.
That's right. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
So
just
is this,
talk.
Is this the
They
setup
can.
that
They can
call
see
in the
you.
guests and then you just
Pretty much.
glare the light.
We don't
They
have
can
to
see
worry.
you. That's
We
all
don't
that
have to
counts.
worry about this. We don't have to worry about anything because this is our channel.
That's nice. I'm glad to see. So I'm honored that you invited me.
No. Look, you and I have been trying to get together for a long time. You've always been a big supporter of what I've done, and everything I've done, I've owed to this guy. I don't know if you know that, but I was his. What do we need? We need him to get closer to the microphone. Is that what we're saying? Okay, there we go. How's that? Is that
Told me it
better?
was super sensitive.
It is
Next
super
thing you know, they
sensitive,
can't
right?
hear me.
Well, no, I just want to make sure that
Well,
everybody's heard. Nobody has any problem hearing me.
Hey,
Dan.
what can we do about the light? I'm only
Nothing. You don't want to do anything
Where's
about
that
the
shining-
this.
No. Come on.
No,
Because you won't see me then. So sorry, brother. You got to deal with this.
It's
Okay?
all right. I can handle that.
I know you can.
We are twin brothers, different
like
mothers.
this.
Although you guys could absolutely
I
do the
think
same
that
thing.
was, yeah, you know.
Dan,
I like his haircut. He's
I-
smooth. Leave him
go.
alone.
all right.
There aren't too many guys that can wear this
That's
style.
right.
All right.
That's right.
Thank you.
We've been beating up. Ooh, bad pun, but that's exactly what it is. How the NFL has handled the whole situation with the tape and all this. But let's talk a little bit about the Sport and Society Center at Northeastern University, what you do there as executive director. Jimmy and I are both friends and familiar with Richard Lapchick, who was the founder of it, along with Tom Satch Sanders, if I'm correct, right? Tell us about what you do and what the center does, and then we'll kind of segue into some other
Well,
things.
at the center right now, even though we call ourselves the Center for the Study of Sport and Society, we do, in fact, engage in a lot of things that have to do with athletics. The interesting part of the center is that we use the common ground of sport to create dialogue and conversations that people normally wouldn't have. And so when we start thinking about our world, I think two things stand out. And even in this NFL issue, I think there's two things that stand out. One is that there's a major gender disparity in the world, and there's also a major racial disparity in the world. And I think that the disenfranchisement of women worldwide and the disenfranchisement of populations, particularly African American populations in our country, despite the fact that we have an African American president, people try to claim that we're in a post-racial world. And you see so much around this issue, and there's an awful lot of subsets about this NFL issue that have to do not only with the promulgation of gender violence and the oppression of women, but also sort of the undercurrent of racist tendencies that we have as a society. So having said that, what we do at the center is we exist in three primary lanes. One lane is that we're a primary prevention program for gender violence and other types of violence. So we work with law enforcement agencies, we work with pro teams, but basically we see ourselves as a community engagement engine that creates a dynamic where we create curriculum, policy, curriculum, and facilitated dialogue that creates sort of a cognitive development among audiences about how to create positive social change. And that could be in the gender violence prevention realm, it could be in the gun and youth violence prevention realm, it could be in the sexual trafficking prevention realm, it can be in a number of things. So, of recent, the types of things that we've done on a national level or an international level, we delivered the gender violence prevention training at the World Cup in South Africa 2010. We actually did workplace conduct training for the NFL in 2010.
They could use a review course. Sorry, had to
that's fine.
interject that.
We next week or the week after, we're doing the cultural competency training for the Los Angeles Dodgers. We're presently doing sexual assault prevention training for some military bases in Georgia, and we pretty much stay in those lanes. The third lane we have is really around how do you engage sport-based youth development entities around the world to engage in these larger conversations, so that when we're teaching kids or when we're working with kids in athletic fields, in YMCAs, in the Boys and Girls Clubs, in a variety of great places like Dock Lane or other places in the city that are just delivering unbelievably great programming, how do you use that time and out of school time to create teaching moments and opportunities for not only for kids to learn, but sort of in our realm, we try to create a whole workforce development engine, because the disenfranchisement of kids around the globe, particularly people that haven't really had a seat at the table, how do we create a dynamic for them where they move beyond the psychosocial drama trauma that's been the drama in their neighborhoods that have created the trauma really for so long, because they haven't had opportunity. The greatest social justice issue on the planet is an opportunity and an access to education. How do we create it? How do we engage? And how do we engage people in understanding it on a much larger level?
It's a great answer, and such important work too. And I've always been fascinated by what you guys have created over there. You told me a couple of weeks ago when we were trying to get this together that the NFL had contacted you. Are you doing anything specifically with the National Football League now?
Well, we were in conversation with them. Actually, we reached out first on another issue. We had done with the NFLPA last year, the Players Association. We created an entire webinar around sort of what does positive youth coaching look like, and particularly what does positive youth coaching look like in communities of color. Again, because we pay a large attention to disenfranchisement and how to change what I would call social abnorms. And so we created an entire series, and we had some amazing people on. It's a webinar, it's a course, it's a positive coaching course. It's sort of a part of a coaching certification type process, and really we had people such as John Carlos from the 1968 Olympics was on the webinar. We had the new African American police chief in Boston, Willie Gross, an amazing individual and sort of the face of community policing in Boston at the moment. We had coaches from around the country. We had former pro players on it, and really, so we are constantly in contact with all leagues around how do we use their platform to move social justice and the pendulum of social justice forward in a way that's positive.
We're talking with Dan Leibowitz. He's the executive director of Northeastern University's Center for the Study of Sport in Society. Jimmy Myers, Jimmy Young, and Dan. I know Jimmy has a lot to say.
Yes, I do. Dan, as I look at this entire scenario of sport in society, I can't truly ask sports to govern society. I've got to ask the people that live in society on a day-to-day basis to deal with issues such as drugs, such as violence, such as racism, sexism, any type of ism. And I really think that it's unfair sometimes to dump all of that in your corner or any organization's corner. And to go further with that, why all of a sudden now does the National Football League have to come to you? And this has been a societal problem. Domestic violence alone has been a societal problem since the beginning of this nation, our time, and whatever.
Well, let me clarify. They didn't come to us. We've been engaging with them for a long period of time.
Okay.
This is just a continued conversation. So
Okay.
I've had a lot of conversation with them. We did workplace conduct training for them in 2010. We did this NFLPA thing last year. To the credit of the National Football League, and a lot of people are missing this point, if you looked at organizations across the globe, major corporations across the globe, about 7 to 11%, depending on whose study you're using, have any type of domestic violence policy at all. And so the league wasn't dissimilar from entities in the political realm and
That's
the
what I'm
business
saying.
realm and any of these other realms. What makes sport unique to sort of answer the question of what allows our center the ability to kind of be facile in the space is, number one, everyone who delivers curriculum for us was a former athlete. Right? Either a Division I, an Olympic athlete, a pro athlete, but sport is a common denominator. So, you can have people that have varying views on race, varying views on religion, varying views on politics, varying views on capitalism versus socialism, various views on a number of things, but they might all, look at how many people in here tonight are wearing a Patriots jersey. And so the common ground, that commonality, I try to think about it like a mathematical equation. When you're doing algebra and you're looking for that common denominator, if you're multiplying fractions or you're doing whatever, right? You're looking for a common denominator so you can start a conversation. I don't find it unfair that people are turning to sport. I look around the globe. I look at the situation in South Africa, not a military embargo. I mean, not threat of not military action, not an economic embargo, not a number of other threats ever changed the sort of pendulum of what was this incredible, oppression of apartheid. And yet,
Excuse me, please forgive me for interrupting you there, but Nelson Mandela did that. Sports had nothing to do with that. Nelson Mandela's the impact of Nelson Mandela and what was going on in South Africa is much greater than sports to me. See, I've lived in sports my entire life, and I don't want to give sports credit that it doesn't deserve, Dan. Dan, did you hear me just for 1 second? I'm still saying we need to do this within ourselves. I don't need sports to tell me how to raise my kids. I don't need sports to tell me that I'm not supposed to be beating on women. Yes, and it is a common denominator we can agree on, but we've got to be bigger than that as a society. That's what I'm saying.
But conversations have to start somewhere. And so when you think about the center, what we do at the center is we don't legislate behavior. I think the reason that people come to talk to us is that our curriculum is set up in such a way, it's a playbook. We set up a playbook with various scenarios. And we might have a number of people in the room, and we go through that playbook, and we say, there's a scenario, and it's a particular scenario. What would you do in this situation? And there may be a number of options of that situation. But rather than telling people what they should or shouldn't do, we facilitate a conversation around what we let them talk so that the cognitive development is their own ownership. People still have to be moved from one spot to another. If we are stagnant in a space where we have racism, where we have sexism, where we have ageism, where we have all these isms, and no matter what they are, if we're stagnant in that space and the status quo seems to either be the status quo or getting worse, how do you facilitate a conversation to move that pendulum back? And so for us, we live in that space.
I always feel that time and space will dictate what's going to happen within a society. That means from a historical perspective. I don't look at Jackie Robinson as much as I look at the black men and women that served in the military for all of the years that they did leading up to Jackie Robinson, or for all the wars that black people fought in to get us to where you could have a Jackie Robinson. See, I've loved sports all my life, Dan, and I've dealt in sports, but I deal in real life. And I'm always saying that the isms, as you just mentioned, they have to be within us to change them. And I don't care how many football games I watch or what impact sport is going to make on a society, that it's ever going to change until people change. Like you mentioned, you made a very good point about 7 to 10% of the companies were practicing the right thing or whatever. Well, we're the Harvards. We're the higher institutions of learning that should be teaching these things. They're practicing the same problems.
Granted, but if you think about the limited number of people that get an access to a Harvard, the limited number of people that get an access to these institutions, the NFL has an unbelievable platform. And so when you think about that platform, it's almost remiss not to use that platform for the conversation to move society forward. Again, getting back to that common denominator thing, and also to the facilitation of conversation thing, a thought process has to be motivated or moved somewhere. And so if everyone was just automatically introspective about understanding that skin color or religion or anything else, that really we're all just humankind, right? If people did that on their own, we wouldn't need to sort of move people one way or another in either a facilitated conversation or society forward in one way or another.
But my issue with the NFL or sports is the fact that it's the immediacy. They'll do it now because the light is on them. But as we go forward, you're asking a league to do something that society has to do. We still have too many racial problems in this country, too many too much sexism, too many other issues that I think this is so much bigger than sports. Women issues. We have to get better as people. And I'm not looking for some NFL player or a league or the NBA or an NHL.
Well, you're not, but a lot of
anybody
people will listen to those guys, Jimmy, because of who they are. You may not like that, but that's what they do. It lends them to open up a conversation. And that's got to be the first step. Recognizing that there's a problem and then talking about that problem is the first step in anything to change.
At the end of the day, if you look at a lot of cultures around the world, so many cultures are moved by celebrity. Right. Now that may be something that we don't feel comfortable with. I'm an athlete. I'm running a center that deals with sport. My feeling is that if we don't find some ways to embrace intellectualism, we will never move society forward. And so if we have to use the vehicle of sport to engage people in the conversation of why intellectualism is important, or what we need to talk about and why we need to talk about them, or why is it that people don't engage in real conversations around race or gender equity or anything else. So we live in that realm where we're trying to engage people in those conversations that they aren't comfortable with, that people haven't really engaged in, that people seem afraid of because they're worried about the backlash. So if you look at this NFL incident, show me anywhere on the globe where people aren't more apt to be reactive than proactive.
You tell me in that vein is one thing, but I'm telling you, I live in a world where people come from all over this world to come here. I'm saying the problems of America, we still don't want to talk about race. No matter what you say about this or that or whatever, the biggest problem in this country, I always say, Dan, two things: race and class. Race and money. Those are the two central issues that black people deal with every single day of our lives. How we're going to be if we're stopped by the police. How we're going to be when we walk into a restaurant. Sports did not change any of this. A civil rights movement came and went. It didn't change as much as it should have changed. What I'm saying is that until we reach the point whereas the people, okay, you said that most times celebrity drives this. No, I have some presidents that made some very, very heavy, monumental decisions that changed the law, and they didn't need athletes to do it. They didn't need Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, those people to do it. They were pushed by a movement. Movements change things. Sports leagues don't change things to me.
When you look at culture today, when you look at the internet today, when you look at the vast contracts that even college football has today, when you look at reality TV today, when you look at what kids are watching today, I'm a guy that raised 5 boys and 1 girl. Okay. And multiracial, right? So I'm looking at that situation, their situation, and we used to have what we would call the breakfast of hope and the dinner of reality. Okay. And the breakfast of hope, you would voice what you would hope the day would be. The dinner of reality is how it played out, on the basis of your race, on the basis of your sex, on the basis of those things. But when I watch my kids, and I've watched them grow up in the culture that surrounds us, I know that celebrity drives a lot of what they do. I know that they're more in tune to what someone said on Love and Hip Hop than they are to what the president said in the State of the Union address.
Right. So, hang on, Jimmy. Let him finish, and then I get to ask a question.
So when I'm thinking about that, I don't think to myself, oh, that's good, bad, awful, indifferent. I think, okay, as an educator, I want to meet people where they are and move them to where they and all of society needs to be. That's what I think of in terms of looking through that prism. How do I move them to the social change that we need to have around race conversations, around economic disparity conversations, around gender equity conversations? Jimmy Carter just wrote a great book, and it was called The Call to Action.
Call to Action.
And the book is is amazing in that it shows just the unbelievable oppression of women around the globe, right? And much can be said, you know, in this country around race relations, you know, the same thing. We might want to turn a blind eye to it, but we know that that's true. And so as the country, as we start watching the browning of America, right, and we know that's happening, and if we believe, as I believe, that democracies around the globe, no democracy on the planet moves without capitalism. And no capitalism moves without consumerism. So if we've had Latino and African American populations that have been so disenfranchised from consumerism that drives capitalism, we're looking at a dying democracy. So I want to engage people in the conversation. If you believe that you're a capitalist and you say how much you love democracy, how can you stand idly by and watch so many vast portions of our society be disenfranchised and disempowered by not being able to engage in the consumerism that drives it?
Careful now, because you're starting to sound like me. Go ahead.
That's good. No, I
actually was going to say to you, we're not actually saying much different.
No.
No. You guys are good, and I'm actually listening to it. And it's great.
Think of this.
Jimmy,
You
no.
mentioned 5.
Go ahead, quickly. Go ahead. Quickly. I get to quickly.
Ask your question.
Thank you so much.
Ask your question.
I actually want to go back to something he mentioned about 10 minutes ago,
Okay.
called the playbook. Because I remember the playbook. I had a copy of it back in the day when I had a show, and Don McPherson was working with the Sport Society group. And you know, you quickly mentioned it, and it sounds great, but I really want to give people the understanding of exactly what are you talking about when you are talking about the playbook. And I know, for instance, you're at a party, you set the scene. You're at a party, you're an athlete, and you know one of your teammates has had too much to drink and he disappears with a female. What do you do?
So there would be a number of different scenarios
Right.
about what you would do, and it would gauge the group. And the groups really only work in segments of about 25 because that engages a good conversation. I can give you an example in another realm. We've mainstreamed the awful B word in our society. Talk about how much we oppress women on the planet. And so we might bring a team into the room and say, who thinks using the word B is okay? If you think it's okay, sit on the left side of the room. If you're unsure, sit in the middle. If you think it's not okay, sit on the right. Now we might have 90 players in that room. And so we continue to have a conversation. I might ask the people on one side, well, you think it's okay, so explain to me a scenario in which it's okay. The people on the side that don't think it's okay, I ask them why they would come up, you know, what is it that makes them think it's not okay, and the unsure people I ask again. What you end up doing is try to move that conversation to an understanding where people start getting a feel of the word as it relates to themselves. So we try to create an empathy platform. What does the world look like from an African American eyes out? Not from your view of what an African American's feeling, but from that African American eyes out, or from a Latino woman's eyes out, or whatever. The conversation in the B phrase would be, maybe if we had a certain number of African American men in the room, I would say to them, when was the first time it was used in relation to a female in the United States? So if I slap up a sign that says 30 B's, X amount of dollars, now it changes the conversation for a lot of men that were comfortable using the word. If I change the scenario, you know, and we could change the scenarios around race for whites, you know, whatever. The bottom, or in
Religion
a gender
too,
equity,
I'm hoping.
Religion.
Yeah.
The bottom line is we try to customize every single curriculum to the need of the entity. So if we're doing it for the military, we would have scenarios that relate to the military. If we're doing it for the NFL, it would be scenarios that would relate to the players in that room, their backgrounds, a variety of other things, what locker room culture's like. So at the end of the day, the conversation is, we're just asking a couple of questions. That's why we call it facilitated dialogue, because it lends itself to the cognitive development where eventually we're hoping they leave the room talking like Jimmy and I are talking.
Right. And now, Jimmy, I know I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'm going to ask you this question.
I'm wondering why I didn't get offered a drink.
Wait.
No, I'm only kidding. No, I'm only kidding.
PJ, come over here. What would you like?
Can I get a soda water with a lemon?
There you go. Soda water with a lemon. See that? That's how you do that. You got to know people. You got to have a
amazing.
voice that projects. How far have we come since 1964 in the
Not
Civil
far
Rights
enough,
Act?
obviously.
Dan, hang on. How far have we come since 1964?
I'd have to agree with Jimmy. You know, I mean, I when I talk about that breakfast of hope and in reality, that dinner is constant. The sort of disempowerment that my kids feel, or that kids feel, or that adults feel, or I mean, there's so many phrases. There's a new TV series that just came out, and it's called Blackish. And so I noticed in the New York Times there was a critique about it where they basically called one of the people that's involved with the series an angry black woman.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And so the conversation, to me, speaking about what an empathy platform is, well, first of all, the phrase is insulting. But second of all, let's assume, for an instance, that a particular black woman might be angry. There's probably an awful lot of reasons for that anger that would make anybody angry.
Let me ask you a
right?
question.
So why would they frame it like that without actually thinking about the backdrop? How does it feel to be disempowered? How does it feel to be oppressed? How does it feel to be suppressed? How does it feel to create a domination effect that we pretend isn't one? Right? How does that feel?
There is a song, an old rock and roll song that says, what is it? It seems like I got to do wrong before they notice me. And it's back from our day, back in the 60s. Now, you mentioned
I like
your
the
children.
fact that he said back from our day.
I know it.
You
I remember.
I
Hold on,
mentioned to
hold
a
on,
few
hold on.
people that I was
Right.
going to be on with you today,
Okay,
and then I
well,
decided.
I hope they're watching.
And I said to them, I said, and if you don't know who he is, then you're just not in my bracket.
But think of this.
History book.
I'm trying to get to the Sweet 16. If
I
you're not
hear
in my bracket,
That's right.
But think of this. You talk about raising 5 kids. I have 41 godchildren of all races. And this is not something I'm really interested in putting out on YouTube because they all know who they are. Most of them have gone on to be, just about all of them have gone to be successful in their lives. And I've raised a couple of hundred of other people's children of all races. The one thing I try to teach them is that you shape the world. The world does not shape you. It's how you're going to think about issues. And we always, at my dinner table, we always put the issues on the table. Look, what happened at school today? What did you think about this? Why don't we use you mentioned the B word, what about the HWOO word, whatever? And these are things that in my home, with a mother and a father in the house, we were never allowed to use those words. So I was raised in a period of time when I saw the whole world blowing up before me, yet the moment I stepped across the door sill of my home, I was expected to speak the King's English properly. I was expected to conduct myself as a gentleman at all times. I was expected to pull the chair out for my mother, put her coat on, the things I still do to any woman that I'm with to this day. So when I'm asking someone to do something, or any of my godchildren or children that I'm trying to affect, and I say, this is how you treat your mother, because a lot of young people, particularly young black males, are from single parent families, and all they have is their mother. So their anger comes home to their mother. But you mentioned one point that I wanted, that Dan, I want you to think about what you just said, because it hits right at home. I asked this question several years ago on the air, and I must have gotten thousands of email responses right away. I was working at one of the local stations in Boston that was streamed all over the world. I got them from China, Germany. And I asked one question. I said, let me ask you one question. Let me ask the world one question. When you say that a black person like me is angry, I ask you one question. What the hell do I have to be happy about? I live in a country that sends my children off to war. And I've got several of them in the combat zone right now, spilling blood, dying, and so forth. And every day, I'm worried about being stopped by a police officer and being shot if I don't put my hands up quickly. I gotta worry about which street I walk down in America to not be shot at night. So don't come telling me that all of a sudden, oh, I got a black president. Listen, I love President Obama. I'm happy for him, but he does not end the problem. You mentioned it earlier, and it's a very good point. The moment we got a black president, too much of white society felt they got off the hook. There's no racism. Look what we did.
That's right.
Look what we did. You didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Time did this. It was time to make this happen. And what I'm trying to say is that until we as people grow, Dan, I commend you for your work, but it's so much bigger. It's bigger than a football game. It's bigger, and that's a good point.
But you got to change one at a time, Jimmy.
Okay,
you can't change the whole world overnight.
Jimmy, but damn it, I can try.
I know you
You
can.
can say whatever you want that I can't change it, but it doesn't
And
mean
he's
I'm not
trying
going
to.
try.
And he's trying to in a group
And I'm going to
effort.
try it on my terms.
I understand.
Because you're going to accept me for who I am on my terms. I'm not interested in accepting you on your terms anymore because I've seen your terms for 65 years and they don't work. They don't work for everybody. And in a democracy, read your Constitution, read your Declaration of Independence. Unless it works for everyone, it works for no one. Our founding fathers said that. Yeah, they were slave owners. Yeah, they did a whole bunch of dirty stuff. But that's cool. They still wrote some beautiful documents. Now we have to make the words live.
All right, speaking of slave owners, this is a segue to Tom Yawkey. And I want to talk to both you guys about this. Oh, yeah, I had to mention that name. That's
You
my.
had to go there. Go ahead.
I had to go there. Just because everybody can take a nice drink and relax. Tom Yawkey was the owner of the Boston Red Sox for many, many years. I know over 50 years. I want to say from look to the.
1933, wasn't it?
Thank you. 33 to. And then Gene passed away, and John Harrington took over the estate.
Yep.
And John Harrington, whose job it was to almost create a legacy of Tom Yawkey, is the guy behind.
And Gene Yawkey.
And Gene, well, no, but Gene passed away. John got all that money. He's the head of the Yawkey Foundation, and he's been trying to preserve that name around Boston. And
There's
I'm not.
both names. Don't forget
And
that.
I'm not sure if he's doing a great job or not, because now there's a movement to get Yawkey Way closed down and make it back to Jersey Street. I want to know. Wait a second. I know how you feel. I want to know.
No, you don't know how I feel.
Tell me,
Don't ever
man.
assume that you know how
All
I
right,
feel.
I know, and
Don't.
assume makes
But
asses out of you and me.
let's go to our guest.
That's where I was going. Okay, fine.
First, I want to get back to Jimmy's point about I think that the whole concept that we live in a post-racial world because we have an African American
Yeah, it's
president
just
is
ridiculous.
something that actually set us so far back in a conversation in many
interesting.
respects because it's
Go ahead.
created this dynamic where people can't even understand as I talked about before, just the incredible economic disenfranchisement and what that means throughout generations, and also just the systemic way in which that disenfranchisement has been institutionalized in our country. So the irony of most of the conversation tonight is I think we're saying exactly the same thing.
We are.
But I don't say it with as much flair.
No, well,
but,
by the way, and don't try to, because when it comes to flair,
but
I'm the man in the chair. Does that make you happy?
Yes, that makes
Flair,
me happy.
Man in chair.
I get
You got
it. That was
Thank
well
you.
done. Well done.
Continue, Dan.
so, I think what you see is just, I understand the movements that sort of to either rename back or to
Yeah.
do whatever. I would say that, just as when people are just attacking Goodell, and there, so many people are attacking Goodell,
It's easy.
and I get the dynamic of that, all right? And yet, just like you got to start somewhere,
Okay.
when you start thinking about people trying to at least make somewhat of an amends about history, I mean, you'd have to be someone that didn't either get the Globe, read the paper, or do anything not to have read the amazing piece on Tommy Harper
right.
the other day, right?
Bob Holler.
An amazing piece. Holler's an amazing writer, by the way, and just an unbelievable social justice advocate, an amazing writer.
and Jimmy lived
Right.
the Tommy Harper story, I just want to say,
So-
but go ahead.
20 years before he ever wrote it. But
Right,
go ahead.
right.
And was persecuted for just bringing all this stuff to the public. So,
Right.
as much as I give him credit, and you did a good job with that, because I didn't read it, but you were still 20 years behind. But nobody wanted to hear what we were saying back at that time.
Imagine
Go
what,
ahead.
imagine what Tommy Harper went through.
There you go.
And that's what I think Bob did really well, was kind of, it gave Tommy an audience to talk about what he's been going through himself.
Well, he's still going through it.
Right,
I mean, it doesn't-
absolutely.
It doesn't go away.
No, it
right?
doesn't
So
go
I
away.
think that people make a mistake to think that it goes away, or that because he had notoriety or he had fame at some point, or that somehow it mitigates it. It does not mitigate it.
You can't
So-
give him back the years.
That's right.
See, it's the same as with Nelson Mandela. I was blessed to be able to interview this man after he got out of prison. But nothing's going to give him back those 27 years. Nothing's going to give him back every single day of his life that he worried about living. Just do I get to tomorrow? And I'm sitting here writing my autobiography on toilet paper, and I'm burying the toilet paper so nobody can find it. And when you read Long Walk to Freedom, and you read some of his works, you ask yourself, what must the strength in this man's mind to be able to withstand that and still have love in his heart when he got there. Because he could have blown South Africa off the map if he wanted to. He could have said, everybody did this, we're going to start chopping off heads. We're going to start no, what was the first thing he did? We're going to have reconciliation. I'm studying this. It's reconciliation. And most black people are saying, why? Why should you have reconciliation for all the millions of black people that were killed? And I'm saying, well, think about this, which I spoke in front of an audience. I said, we could do the same thing in this country. If we want to have reconciliation tomorrow, we could have reconciliation. But what is going to change, as you mentioned, that until we can straighten out our schools, become economically viable within our communities, so we can end the violence in the black community, so we can do these things, I'm sorry, we're still going to be a society battling within itself. And like you said, we can't survive that way.
Well, because we don't look at root causes. We tend to not look at root causes. We look at something as if it's a stagnant bubble. Like, we don't want to look at root causes. Well, we look at, you look at the players, and people want to point to players. It's easy in the NFL to point to players and say, so we have 3 or 4 examples of recent where African American players have been involved in domestic violence. And so all of a sudden they're on a marquee about being, violent. So is there an undercurrent or a subset that says, they're trying to convey the point that African American males are being more violent, more gender specific violent than white males? I mean, if you look across a landscape, and again, we can look at that landscape of politics, of business, celebrity, sport, at you're going to find it in every community. Get into your other point about this disenfranchisement, particularly economic disenfranchisement. I think the most poignant thing that ever happened to me around that was once driving a player of mine. I coached high school basketball, and a female player was driving and we were driving through Wellesley. And this is around the time of
Were you driving
9/11.
Did you go a little faster to get
So
through
2001. 2001.
9/11.
2001. Okay.
She's
Little
looking
Wellesley.
around, and we were going to a game. She's looking around, and everybody has a flag out. And she says to me, I cry so much about my situation. I don't have any more eye water to cry with. And yet I drive out here, I see these flags everywhere, and I can see why everyone's so damn angry. These people got something to lose.
Wow.
And so that out of the mouth of a high school junior,
Right.
on the way to a basketball game, said it all to me.
Now turn that to the desperation that so many young people of color across this nation are feeling right now. When you talk about Ferguson, when you talk about Fruitvale Station, when you talk about Trayvon Martin, you talk about all of these things, there is an anger that's building here that is ready to explode, and I don't want to be around here when it does. Because for one reason, it's going to be straight across the board where a lot of good people are going to get hurt. I'm more concerned about the good people. Bad people are always going to wind up doing some crazy stuff. But I'm more concerned about the good people that are going
So
to get hurt.
can we manage the anger and turn it into a positive? Could we somehow or other take that fervor, that feeling, and move it into a direction that can be positive? Because you guys all know, all this stuff is learned behavior, and you're trying to educate.
Well, when we talk about education, it's not just facilitated conversation. The center, what came out of the center really is the first application of what bystander empowerment or bystander intervention would look like. And so when you start looking at situations, or you look at, so if you look at violence in the city, it's being promulgated by very few people on very few streets. And yet, you read about it's plastered on across the banner
If it bleeds,
headline.
it leads,
But
guys.
if you
Come
start
on.
thinking about 99% of the youth, or maybe it's 98.5%
98%
that aren't involved
doing
in it,
anything.
then how do you empower those bystanders to actually engage and create the skill set and toolkits that they need to intervene positively in their own communities? And so, and then how do you engage the rest of the people who are bystanders that, to Jimmy's point, this is a whole societal issue. It's running through the whole social fabric of our society. And so how do you engage bystanders in the same thing, the toolkit and skill set to intervene, to create a positive movement of social justice? So getting back to how we started the interview, I'm not, we are one small cog of a place that's really trying to put a sustainable social justice imprint in the social fabric of society, using the vehicle of sport, recognizing that so many people use it as a common ground to create conversation. And that maybe through that common ground, they can build a tangential common ground and a third common ground, to the point where we get to the point of understanding that we are all humankind.
You know
and
what
we
I
have the
fear,
same
Dan?
interests.
You know what I fear? I fear that we've gone so far down the road. I don't know if you, your organization, or anyone can save us now. I think that, hold on, you asked, excuse
Go
me,
ahead,
I'm
go
going
ahead.
to give this opinion because I think
I
it's
know you
important.
can. I know it,
I
Jimmy.
think it's
Every
very
opinion that
important,
comes
and
out of your mouth.
I'm praying that some people sitting out there listening and learning something. If we don't turn this around in a very fast amount of time, we're going to have so much anarchy and chaos in our streets that our country will not be our country anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's where I'm going, Jimmy. I'm more concerned that we will have situations that will just get completely out of hand. People talk about ISIS, and people talk about they still talk about Al Qaeda. That's how you pronounce it. They still talk about those things, but I'm much more concerned about America. I'm much more concerned about what we're doing to ourselves than what I'm worried about the rest of the world's going to try to do to us. We present a united front on the battlefield, and then we come home and we go our separate ways. And all I'm saying is, as long as you have underachieving schools, as long as you have people of color who can't get jobs, people of color who are in a state of despair that is so terrible that they just give up, as long as you keep having this and other people sit around and go, well, that's their problem, we're going to be in trouble. We are in trouble, and we're only going to get deeper in trouble, Dan.
Well, again, we're just sort of underscoring the points we've made all along, right? That I think that, we're looking at, I think democracy is an unbelievably great system. And I think that capitalism can be a great system as long as you're creating a dynamic where people can engage in it. But people have to be able to engage in it. And so, again, capitalism is largely driven by consumerism, and we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have been basically left outside of that paradigm, right? And so the question is, right? So the point being that when you're looking at that dynamic, if that dynamic doesn't change, if you continue to disenfranchise populations to the nth degree, you get the outcome so it's sort of a logic model outcome, right?
Right.
Here are our challenges. Here are resources. What's missing here that gets us to the logic model?
Jimmy, very quickly.
Outcome of greater engagement.
You know, one of the things that some of the NFL players that I've talked to have brought up to me, how come we only have the black guys out there that are being named in all these? You think white guys aren't committing domestic violence?
Didn't I just say that?
That's what you said. That.
Right.
I'm saying to myself, I don't care who's committing domestic violence. It has to stop.
Right. Well,
Right.
it's a men issue,
Right, but the point is that I think that when you watch this issue, and I want to get back to the Goodell point too. Everyone is attacking Goodell, and I get that. He made a major mistake, an unbelievably major mistake. And yet at the same time, getting back to the fact that only 7 to 10%, depending on the study you look at, of organizations even have a domestic violence policy, he listened to the public outcry, reversed course, and came with a policy that's more stringent than I imagine if you went and looked at Apple's policy or Microsoft's policy or anybody else's policy. The point is that he made a U-turn, reversed, created an extremely stringent policy that I hope at least sets the bar not only for policies everywhere, but creates again that national conversation that we ought to be having, not only in the gender violence realm, but in the racial realm, because of the fact of the subset that they put these 3 players really up on a market.
Why is it football? Why football? Is it because it's a violent sport?
We live in an extremely
Violent society. What are you
Right,
talking about?
that's right.
We live in an extremely
We thrive
hyper-masculine
on watching this violent
society.
Wait, no, go back to what he just said. Make that point
So
because
we,
I know
we
that's
live in
important.
an extremely hyper-masculine
Yes.
society, and so when you start thinking about hyper-masculinity and the construct of manhood, one of the other things we work a lot at the center are, and this goes back to Jimmy's points and sort of circles all the way back to his point, and that is when you create a dynamic of hyper-masculinity where all you define manhood by is if I can take you out, I'm a man, then it creates the power dynamic of oppression and suppression of women, oppression and suppression of other races, oppression and suppression of almost
Children.
everything, because we're trying to create this power dynamic. And so if we don't change the concept of or the construct of manhood, both nationally and worldwide, to include kindness, compassion, respect for women, empathy, intellectualism,
Sympathy.
right? All of these things that we, in many respects, have said are mutually exclusive from our definition of manhood. If you create that definition, then you've created this dynamic where it's saturated every piece of the social fabric of our world and actually ruined that social fabric.
Did you guys see Shara Springer's piece in the
Yes.
Sunday magazine
Yes.
about women's sports?
She's another very good talent.
Very good talent.
Very
The club does. I happen to think they have a great sports department. I'm not going to go to the editorial side, the other side. I'm just going to say I think their sports department does a great job. She made some great points about women's athletics. We are sports fans. There's a lot of guys out here, and we're all sports fans. And we're here to watch a sporting event, but it's a male sporting event. You're not here to watch the Boston Breakers or the militia play. And the WNBA has probably been the best example of an accepted women's professional league. You talked about this a little bit earlier on one of our shows about how the WNBA in a lot of ways is better basketball fundamentally than the men's game, because the men's game is about power and it's about getting on Sports Center. It's about that hyper masculine thing, where women's sport is about
Teamwork.
and the
Passing
sport
the
and the
ball.
camaraderie and all the
Moving without
stuff.
the ball.
By the way, it's all
Doing
the
the things
stuff
you're
that we
supposed to do.
loved about sport.
You know, it's kind of funny. I brought back to the go back to the example of the high school player. I was driving to a game, and people said to me, "You've coached both men and women. What do you like more?" I said, "Fundamentally, I like coaching the women
Oh, so
more
do I.
because they
So do
play
I.
the game
So
the
do
way
I.
the game
Oh,
was
shit,
meant to
it
be
It's meant to be
played."
played.
No
That's
competition.
right.
So when you look at the WNBA, and so you're talking to a guy that raised 5 boys that all thought they were really great players, and they got caught up in sort of that cycle of youth and hypermasculinity, and they would talk to me about certain things. And I think my favorite slogan of all time was when the NBA had a short span window of a slogan that said, "They're better than you are."
Better than you.
I happen to think they're the superior gender, too, guys. I'm just
Well,
saying.
I totally agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Women are the superior gender.
Absolutely.
But think of this.
They don't
Consider
use
this.
they don't use that as much as they should.
But consider this. I want to go back to something you said about Goodell, to which we still haven't asked you the big question: do you think he saw the tape or not? But hold that thought until you hear this, because this is really important to me. When I'm looking at the dynamic of what women bring to this society, they breed our children, they nurture our children, they take care of our homes, and many of them have 2 and 3 jobs while they're doing this.
Well,
They
they have to be
are the
fathers
superior,
and mothers.
right? They are the superior
right.
beings. Now, as you mentioned, and this is a very good point that you made about the fact of what you felt drove the NFL. No, you know what I thought drove it, Dan? And I'll be very honest with you. When women, now Terry O'Neill, and that organization started raising their voices, and they started, and we
Well,
said
I
on
talked
this
about the
airway-
public outcry.
No,
I would say
the
that
public- but I'm
that's
just
what I meant
saying-
by the public
I'm
outcry.
just saying their power to hit the sponsorships of the NFL and say, hey, hold on. We're the buying power here.
right.
We buy your products. And until this situation with the National Football League gets a little better, we're going to start protesting. We're going to start marching around stadiums. We're going to start marching around the corporate offices of your places, and we have women on those boards too. Now all of a sudden, you have to hear their voices. That goes back to your social change. That goes back to where the impact is, because
right.
these women had the courage to stand up and say, no more. We're not doing this anymore. And God bless y'all. You need to keep arguing about this, and you need to keep fighting about this until we get some semblance of equality, for one reason. As long as you are not accepted as an equal, I'm not going to be accepted as an equal, and even you or you are not going to be accepted as equals, whether you're Jew, Gentile, whatever. it still boils down to the fact of, I always feel, and the sad part about society is that people don't change. Situations make people change. And that's the unfortunate part of life, that situations make people change. When during the civil rights movement, we'll go back to that just briefly, when you started when black people started interrupting the financial stream of this country, started burning down cities and so forth. Unfortunately, they weren't even smart enough because some of them were burning down their own houses. But when they started disrupting the economic stream of cities, of entire cities, no public transportation running, no one going to work, and so forth and so on, this whole country changed its attitude overnight. Black children were allowed to get into college. Young people were allowed to do certain things, and the country rose, whether it wanted to or not. And this is in the cusp of the Vietnam War. You see, I do know my history. All of this was going on, and all of these things were changing. Then we had the women's movement coming in the late 80s with Gloria Steinbeck, God bless you, in 70s, excuse me, 70s and 80s. And all of a sudden, people started stepping up to the plate. So I'm saying to you, Dan, that I know it can be done. It can be done because we've done it before.
But I think, you said that certain instances create the conversation. And so, initially we started and you said, why aren't we just better, right? Why don't we do better? Why aren't we better? And yet you have to sort of accept that for some ungodly reason, we are not better, right?
Is it human nature? What is it?
So I think it's I like to refer to it as
DNA within us?
I think that there's a certain sense of fallibility in the human condition, and I think that people watch certain politicians and they'll fall off, and people will blame them, or I had the good fortune of meeting last week with Diane Wilkerson's young, unbelievably talented son.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about certain issues that are plaguing the city, and I told him that I was a huge fan of his mother, and that his mother delivered so much for her community, and that we're a culture that we love the rise. And we love to vilify when people fall because we are flawed. All of us are flawed.
Right.
And so there's a fallibility to the human condition. Having said that,
we love the
There's a-
next step too,
there's
which is
a-
coming off the canvas and
Not
coming
all
back.
of us. He's speaking
I
in general.
understand.
Because most people, because I think there's a goodness in people's hearts that most people don't want to see their heroes mess up. They don't want to see them fall.
but I think in some respects it makes people that feel that they're caught in some sense of just blandness or normalcy or worse. It makes them feel somehow it's sort of that misery loves company mentality that is sort of dominant
wanna think like that.
so
Well,
much.
I think the media has
So-
created a lot of that, guys, and I
So-
kind of threw out the line of if it bleeds, it leads.
But
It's that sensationalism.
Just want to so when you look at someone, Diane, I thought was an amazing individual for her community, brought a million things to her community, and so when an incident happened where it was alleged that she did whatever, and people tend to forget the greatness that was in her, the greatness that she brought forth, the greatness that she brought to her community under all the conditions that we talked about earlier. And so this situation here, all these situations that we talk about, people are fallible. We deliver this curriculum, and yet I like to say to everybody when we get up, if you're a man, don't sit here and think you're enlightened. You're enlightened till the next second. You constantly have to work on
Evolve.
Yeah, right. And
We're
so
honest. Well, I remember when Diane was first released from prison, there was an election, and she was standing outside of this community center, and the people were walking past her like she wasn't even there. I stopped and personally said, look, Diane, let's have a little conversation. Because I asked Diane to come on my radio show at the time. I said, I'd like to ask you some serious questions, because I know her son, I know her family. And I said, Diane,
what a beautiful talent her son is.
Yes. And I told her, I said, Diane, we are all judged in the court of public opinion for whatever reason, whether that's right or whether that's wrong. I wasn't there when this video showed you doing whatever you were doing. But at the same time, I would still ask you, why would you take all of your good works and allow them to come crashing down with one or two incidents? And she basically said, because I'm human. And when she said that to me, I said, good enough answer for me. And I went on the air the next Sunday and I said, I spoke with Diane this week, And she said, because I'm human, because I saw certain situations and I felt maybe I could do this, and this. It's the same as there's a recent story in Sports Illustrated about this AAU coach named Malone, who was a big time drug dealer. And
It's a great story.
It's a great story because they talk about all the good things he did, but they're all wiped out by that one thing, that
But
conviction.
there's an undercurrent to that story that no one's paying attention to. And so that is that he basically, if you read the story carefully, he's marketing players to particular coaches
Yep.
that are Teflon, right? And that we bow down to in this country.
Yep.
And so that kind of
Coach
brings,
Krzyzewski and others. Yep.
brings us back to the point where the vehicle of sport does create a conversation in many respects. And so that article is interesting because of all the subsets to it. Because of we are quick to deify
Yep.
certain people.
Right.
And we are
even
quick.
quicker to vilify.
And that's right. Absolutely.
But and then the best story is the second half.
I wanted
coming
that.
off the
I
canvas.
wanted that rhyme, and he took it.
All
Oh,
right.
sorry about that.
I'm,
I'll let you just.
I'm only playing.
I've been
knock yourself
enjoying
out.
this. I've really been sitting here listening and
So-
getting an education myself. I think both you guys are very passionate about what you do, and I have
And
the
so,
utmost respect for both.
I have to say, this is the first time that we actually have been together, and I was overjoyed that you were going to be on the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad I was able to do that.
So,
Yeah. Be quiet. You did something good for once. God bless you.
What?
Okay, once.
What?
You
Okay,
get,
just
you get a little
once.
happy with yourself. Let's put ego back here.
No.
and
It's no
let's go
ego.
forward, okay?
I'm just saying. I like bringing people together
The
to
most
have
important
conversations.
thing- the most
to have
important
these
thing-
kind of dialogues.
the
Is that
most
okay?
important
The most important
thing-
thing is to get your.
The most important thing is that we get a chance to dialogue. But what's even more important than that is that the people sitting out there, because I don't like to point at the camera, the people, you out there, get a chance to listen to this, go back and listen to it again and again and again, and prayerfully, because I pray for all of you, that you will get it in some kind of way, that we are trying to give you the last vestiges of what can be. But I still believe, because every day I'm going to wake up, I'm going to believe that this country can get it right somewhere down the line, Dan. I don't want to wake up to a country that I don't believe can't get it right. I just don't want to be here anymore.
and as you know, I look at everything that I do through a fatherhood lens. So I'm fortunate to be blessed with kids, to enjoy their being with them. I look at it through, getting back to some other points that you made. You had a two-parent family, right? And so, there's
God.
so many kids in the country that are longing for that two-parent family, or who just don't even have a parent that has the liberty to be at home because they have to work so many hours or whatever. And so, there's so many kids in the country being raised by their peers at ages. It's understandable that at certain ages, and there's a number of studies that will show at certain ages, kids are raised by their peers. But it's happening earlier and earlier and earlier because of the despair that so many people in the country feel.
When I was coming up, it was about teenage pregnancy. And the bottom line is my parents stepped in to help my sister when she had 2 babies, when she was 15 and 16. Sure, they had all kinds of stress in their lives dealing with this, but they would not let my sister move out for one reason. Because we were sitting around a table one night and the conversation came up. Well, what do you think about your sister being pregnant at 15? She's the smartest one in the family, on her way to college, which she would wind up going back to college at the end. Both of her daughters went as well. But my mother said something that really hit me. She says, you know why we want to keep them here? Because a couple of my brothers and sisters, well, why do they have to take up the basement? We used to have a recreation room. Now they have a bedroom down there. And how many children is she going to have? And she brought my sister upstairs and sat down. And my mother said, you know why she's here? Because she is our daughter, and children can't raise children. See, when you talk about that peer dynamic, no child is going to raise my child. You can go out to school, you can deal with your friends, but the bottom line is when you walk in this door, you have to understand, as my mother and father taught me, that there's a parent here. And we will help you make the decisions. We will guide you as to where you want to go. That's just good parenting to me. I don't want gangs, as you mentioned, because a lot of these young people go to gangs because it's the only family I have. My mother works all day long. Nobody's home when I get home. Those are all excuses. It is a sensible argument, but there are still excuses, whereas sometimes the parent falls down on the job too. The parents are going, oh, please, this is enough. I've got 2 or 3 kids. I'm out here working all day long. By the time I get home, I just want to get some sleep. I got to go back to work tomorrow morning. I agree. But at the same time, you're still fighting the battle as I don't want society raising my children. I want to raise them.
By the way, toughest job in ever,
No question.
parenting. And,
No
and by the way,
question.
no,
No question.
education before you become one. Let's just
no,
say.
no blueprint.
question.
No blue, or the examples tend to be our parents, and God love them. We all lucky enough to have some of them. It is still sometimes not the best role models to have.
Although it does clarify for you how tough their journey was. and
Yes, it
how,
does.
You tend to, when you're younger, to think. I remember always thinking when I looked at my parents, I would think, why can't you just chill? Now I'm starting to think, well, wait, it's coming to me. That's coming to me.
Now it's coming. Because, see, all my parents ever told me was that I only pray that you live long enough
Oh yeah, to have your own.
to have your own,
To have your own.
and have them do some of the crazy stuff that you have done.
Oh, yeah.
And they got to stand in front of you, and you have to figure out a way not to kill them. I used to laugh when I used to say that. And I did not have a biological one of my own, but I wound up raising a bunch of other people's children. And many times I've told them, don't think you're doing something that I haven't seen before, because I did it. I was 12, I was 8, I was 9. You've never been 65. You've never been 52. You've never been the things that we are, but we're here to guide you. And, you know, I have a friend of mine.
I just wish they all gave us more respect for that age difference. I just want to say, because a lot of times, their job is to push the button to see how far they can push.
Of course, but that's what makes them children.
Right.
We push buttons, Jimmy. Why shouldn't they push buttons?
Yeah,
I mean, I want to see how far I can rattle the lion's cage. I want to.
That's why I've given them an
Before the
audience
lion's
again.
claws comes out and says, "Cut it out. Leave the cage alone." But that's okay. It's part of growing. It doesn't mean that the lion has to rip my arm off, but maybe the lion swats me with a paw or something, and I go, okay, I think I'm getting it now. I think the lion is a little ticked off that the lion doesn't want to do, or the lioness doesn't want to deal with this anymore. And, you know, we go to the whole thing, the spanking children, all that stuff we could talk about at another time, Dan. But, you know, I just ask questions that I find compelling on a day-to-day basis to me, because I work with children every day. I see all of this in front of me, and I'm scared because I say to myself, if I'm not there or somebody else isn't there, what's going to happen to this particular young person? What's going to happen to that particular young person? And if they don't look at me and say, well, Coach, you didn't show up today, or Coach, you don't care anymore, or Coach, you went about your way making money or doing whatever, I can't live my life like that. No matter how much money you would have given me.
See how Jimmy's circling me back to me saying that we work a lot in the Sport-Based Youth Development Network, and
Yeah.
how important your coach is,
Right,
right?
right.
And that out-of-school network,
Right.
and the amazing influence that a coach can have
Right.
in terms of teaching moments and the
Right.
like. So maybe we need to revisit, as we circle back, the influence of sport and the ability of it to change social culture.
But
And
my godchildren say, Godfather, what do I do? If something happens, where do I go? So that's what I say. That's much more important in
Come
sports.
to me. Come to you. Come to. All right. Look, guys, this was great.
Thank you very much for having
Dan,
me.
you're terrific, and Jimmy, as always.
Thank you, my friend.
I don't have to tell you
Thank you so
how I
very
feel
much.
about you.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Jimmy,
All right.
you're a legend, kid. I had to show.
He is totally a legend, and I'm really glad now that we're going to create these digital files that will live on the internet, and I get to distribute them once I go back and edit them, because I still do that. Okay? Not only do I bring them together, but I make it happen.
Pleasure being with you.
Just
Dan,
remember
great
who
job.
taught you about editing too.
Well, that's
Dan, thank you so much.
Yes, you did actually.
Thank you
actually
so
did.
very much. It's a pleasure.
Well, wait a second. Wait. Can you wait? I'm going to wrap it up. Oh, I didn't know. I'm going to wrap it up. I thought it was wrapped. No. This is we're going to make it official. I want to
leave
thank.
until we're done.
I want to thank Joe. Look, I'm not quite sure. It would have been great to have a little feedback from one of our teens. It was great. I really enjoyed listening to you guys. They had an hour with me before.
That's nice.
Anyway, Jamie, I think we did really well this time. We streamed good.
30 minutes or?
No. We're good. I'm done.
I thought we
I'm
were going
done.
up to the game.
I knew you'd say that, but I'm done. Okay.
still have stuff to
I think this is Jimmy. Do you really want to talk
Yes.
about sports after
Yes.
this?
Yes.
All right. I tell you what. Bob and Joe, you guys come over here and talk to Jimmy about the Patriots game, because the real reason why I have to leave. Well, you guys have it. Everybody has to go through this. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm serious. I've been in this chair for 2.5 hours. I have to go to the bathroom.
Streaming that
I
out?
drank more
Right?
iced tea than
I'm
you
streaming
have.
that out, man, because again, we
I'm
don't care.
controlling my bladder.
All right, so
I'm
Jimmy,
fighting it.
yeah, no, well, Anyway, what can I tell you? It was great. Jamie did a great job.
You'll be back.
I'll be back before it's over. But I can let them take.
And he brought a book. It's called Total Patriots. Now, it's Hildberg. Is that how you pronounce it?
Hildberg, yes.
Hildberg. Mr. Bob Hildberg is our guest. Thank you so much, Bob, for taking of your time. I have not read your tome.
Nope.
I will get a copy of it. I don't know if you put anything about Spygate in there, which really is very important to me, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yep.
And young man, you can sit here since you're a Patriot fan. And
All
somewhere in here, we will get to what's going to happen in about half an hour.
Exactly right.
What inspired the book?
I was a frustrated fan. I would listen to sports radio, and I've been listening, watching you for years and years and years. And some of the guys on the radio station would have things that they would throw out and it'd be wrong. You know, the facts would be wrong. And I have an accounting background, and I'd say,
No!
that can't be
I
right.
can't believe
Can't be right. So
these bright, intelligent people in the sports
they throw it out there, and I was like, that's not right, and I'd get frustrated.
I can't believe this.
But-
I'm shocked and agog.
But
Continue.
one of the things that started this is that I wanted to find every uniform number of every player. That's how this book started. I was watching the fireworks in Woburn, Mass, where I live, with a buddy of mine who's a hockey guy, and I'm a basketball and baseball guy and a little bit of football. And we started going over the greatest players to wear number 1, 2, 3. And we got up to the 40s and 50s, and I said, 50? I can't think of,
I'm running out of names.
running out of names. I mean, the easy ones, Jackie Robinson, all that. But when I get into the 50s, I said, geez, I'm missing some numbers. So Gil Santos, who's from Rainham, where I grew up, I called him and I said, I want to get something about the history of the Patriots. He says, get a media guide. I got a media guide, and there was 19 players in the media guide that had NA next to their name. Not available. And I said, that's crazy. I want to find this out. And that's how this whole 802-page tome started, is that I looked up uniform numbers, and as I looked up uniform numbers, I found out about blocked punts and blocked field goals. And, the last time that Chandler Jones, when he blocked the field goal and ran it back, there was only one other guy that did that in the history of the Patriots. Blocked the field goal, picked it up, and ran it in for a touchdown. That was Larry Cowell in 1972. So, in the process of putting all these...
Where was that? Do you remember?
That was here. Yeah, I was against Cincinnati Bengals. Horst Molman.
I was there.
Yeah. 51-yard
I
field.
was
Right
there.
at halftime.
The
yeah.
hard part is I was there. You mentioned Gil Santos.
Yes.
He is the person that I started in this business working for. I was his producer on Patriots games.
Oh, that's
back
amazing.
at that time.
You know?
So all of those guys
Yeah.
I've come through. But the best part is what you mentioned is when you look up, that's one play.
Right.
And you say, now, what made you get deeper and deeper and deeper into this book? So, because this is a tome, ladies and
This
gentlemen.
is it.
Let me see.
It's a
Hold on
50-year
one
history of the
second.
team, yeah.
How many? I'm up to 735 already. Lord knows, I'll be reading this 802 pages. So that means I have a lot of reading to do. Go ahead.
That's it.
Right here. You
Well,
see it?
when I found out there was 13 blocked field goals, I said, well, I want to find all 13. And I would just spend a couple months looking up all 13. And then if there
What
was...
drove you, Bob? To continue
was just-
to go down this line and say, I want
No
to
one
write
had
a
ever done this
complete-
before. Yeah.
Complete thing. Because this would be very easy to walk away from after about 2 or 3 months to say, okay, I got to like.
Yep.
This is a lot of work.
It was a blast to do it, though. When you meet the Richard Johnsons and the New England Sports Museum, and you get a chance to spend some time with Gino Cappelletti for hours and Steve
Who
Grogan.
should be in the Hall of Fame?
And we put a
Another
petition
great
together.
man. Gino,
Absolutely.
you are a great man.
50 years ago, he was the MVP, 1964. So, I knew some guys that did autograph shows. So I would, when Stanley Morgan came into town or Raven Claiborne came into town, I would say, hey, can I interview you? And they said, well, and as people were getting their interview, I had all their interceptions or all their touchdowns or anything they did. Punt returns with Mike Haynes was the first guy to do that, that kind of thing. So they were interested in talking to me, and I was interested in talking to them, and I was collecting all these things. And then one of the things that really started is when we tried to get Gino Cappelletti into the Hall of Fame. I got Nick Bonaconti involved, and Jan Stenerud, and Joe DeLamileri, and I had guys writing petitions, and we sent thousands of them, and I actually sent it to the Hall of Fame, and the Patriots found out that I was doing this all behind the scenes. And Ron Borges, who kind of does the presentation for the Hall of Fame, he called me up and said, and I've been on the radio a couple times, 1510, I probably saw you over there a couple times in Burlington. He says, Andre Tippett's got one more year. First 14 years.
He didn't get in.
He didn't get in. So I said, all right, I'm looking up all this stuff. And I had access to Patriots. Said, anytime you want to come in, look up stuff. So I was looking up every single play-by-play of every single game. I went back to 1960. So I broke down every single one of Andre's games. What he did on second
All
down.
the play sheets, all of
All the
them. Every
third down,
play.
what he
Okay.
did, he's double teamed there, and all of a sudden he stopped that play, and they moved it back. They missed a field goal. He forced this, he forced that. And I broke down all of his
Like
plays.
music to my ears. Go ahead.
And I gave about 6 pages of stuff to Ron Borges. And he used some of my stats in the presentation. And of course, it helped the Patriots win the Super Bowl and all that. But the guys in the room said, where did you get all these stats? You didn't say this the last 14 years. And Ron,
I
and
think
this
he
is,
got you, Ron. And Ron, you're one of my guys, Ron. You were one of my guys. That's one of my favorite people.
yeah,
But
he's
go ahead.
been awesome. And he said, well, Bob the Stat Man. That's what they called me, Bob the Stat Man. Looked all this stuff, gave me a breakdown, and we talked about being on the strong side and the weak side and all that with Lawrence Taylor and Derek Brooks with all that kind of stuff, and some of the stuff hit. And they said, well, I guess he was as dominant as you thought. And
How did you feel when he was elected? Did you feel a sense of accomplishment? Wow, I actually did something that helped someone get there.
I got a lot of stories of going through and meeting players that played in 5 games or 6 games, Bobby Leo, that kind of stuff. So I was inspired. Steve Burton's dad, Ron Burton, was the first guy I interviewed for this book. So I've been putting this stuff together for a lot of players. And that was the first time that I really got national recognition.
But,
But
I'm
so-
asking, though, wasn't it a great feeling of accomplishment? I did something that made the world recognize this because Andre was that close to not getting in.
Yeah,
In the
oh yeah.
period of
If
time.
he didn't get in his
And if
15th
didn't
year,
get
he
in
wasn't
the
getting in
15th year,
probably.
because the Veterans Committee
Right.
or whatever. This is in baseball. It takes sometimes forever for those. Okay, that guy
Yeah.
got pushed away. Okay, he had
Right.
15 shots. We're not even talking about him anymore.
Exactly right.
But when he got there, and the speech that he made was just incredible.
Yes.
But you had to have a feeling of accomplishment because I went through the same thing with Jim Rice.
Yep.
Because I was advocating all 14 years. And
Sure.
Jim came on my show 2 nights
Yep.
before, the night before he was elected.
No kidding.
The last time. He and Cecil Cooper came on WTKK radio. It was incredible.
Right.
And I knew he was getting in that day because I talked to a lot of the voters. I said, Jim, I think tomorrow's the day.
That's it.
What are you going to feel like tomorrow when that phone rings and they say, welcome,
Right.
welcome to the hall?
Yeah.
Well, he says, I'm going to thank you. And I said, no. What are you going to feel like? Because I already had the feeling that it was going to happen.
Right.
The next morning when I woke up at around noon, I heard. I just went in my den, sat there, and just like wiped a tear away from my eye. I said, finally, some recognition.
Recognition, absolutely.
And then the day they put his number up in right field, I was sitting there right behind Johnny Pesky,
Wow.
who was his biggest advocate. And Johnny and I looked at each other, and we just shook our, we just nodded, and we both met him later after the ceremony and everything.
Right.
And I know you had to feel the same way towards Tippett. Did Tippett ever thank you? Because
Oh,
Jim
yeah,
was
no,
like,
Tippett- I
Jim
met his
said,
family
I couldn't
and
have
his-
did this without you.
Rhonda and everything. Yeah, it was surreal, really, to have. I mean, you try to. I mean, I wrote this book for a guy like you that's going to really enjoy this, and one of
I
the.
know you're getting a copy. You know
course.
that. Okay. I'm
And-
not worried. I
and,
know
uh,
you're
I
getting
may
a
not
copy.
read it all, but
It's
No,
it's
you
very
have
late.
to read the whole thing, man. You don't get away. You're going to be a sportscaster. You have no choice. This is an 802-page tome that you must read. Because I'm going to quiz you. I'm coming on your radio show and say, how many pages are you in by now? I'm about 465. You still have a lot further to go.
Well, one of the I've done numerous book signings all over, and probably the most nervous person I ever met was a 16-year-old girl with her parents. And she's like, and I said, it's only a book, no big deal. She says, I can't wait to absorb this because I am going to be a sports reporter and I'm going to know more than the boys.
Bless her.
You know, so
And she'll know more about this than the guys. She'll say, what about page 497? And
That's
if you
it.
don't know it, you're in big trouble. Don't you understand that? You're going to be in huge trouble.
So that was part of, as I'm putting this minutia together for 15 years, it took me,
Minutia.
this Tetris puzzle that we got here. I was thinking about the 10-year-old kid, the 15, the 16, and a 75-year-old guy. I did a book signing in Lake Winnipesaukee. Guy drove 2.5 hours from Maine in his truck to meet and talk to me about Babe Parilli and Gino Capoletti, a game he won at Fenway Park. And I said, that's the reason I wrote this book, to touch you and to relive it and bring it back. And he said, I didn't think I'd ever talk about it again.
That's what I want you to understand. They're leaning here now because you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
If you want to do this, and you're going to be a New England sportscaster more than likely, you have to read the whole thing. See, I'm beyond this now because I'll speed read my way through it. I remember that. I was at half a lot of that stuff. I was there.
Every game is in here.
Still remaining.
Yeah.
These eyes still, this little memory bank, the little videotape in my head. Oh, I remember Carlo Black. Oh, I remember this too. I remember that too.
Yeah.
You have to read it.
That's right.
We got every player in him. You know?
I mean, I'm sitting back and thinking of the work, the time. I'm thinking about, as you mentioned, Carl Garrett, whose page we just turned to. I remember all of these guys being young.
Right.
I was young, with hair.
Yeah, right.
They had hair. The ball thing wasn't in then.
Yeah.
And I remember the struggles of the Sullivan family.
Oh, no
I
question,
remember all the times this franchise had to be saved at the last hour.
Right.
Before Victor Kiam.
Absolutely.
Before Bob Kraft. Before where we stand now.
I mean,
And
the
here you
BU.
are. I did not know until you walked in this door tonight. But I looked at the book, I said, somebody finally hit it. Somebody made a history. And it's not about the 3 Super Bowls.
No.
It's about the history of guys that you may never know or never knew played for your franchise. Now, the Giants have a book about this, big Green Bay Packers. Most of the NFL franchises have it. Somebody like you took the time to write one of these. Now you get to sit back and look at your work and realize this is going to be out there for a long time to come.
It's in the Patriots Hall of Fame.
How has it changed your life?
It was a struggle at the end when the pressure was on to get it done. My wife is like, she still has the football mentality because I have a full-time job and I commute, and then this was a part-time hobby for about 10 years, and then it became an obsession. You got to get it done.
Name?
Millie,
God love you.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm
God
glad
love
you kept driving it.
Yeah.
Continue. We're giving Millie credit too.
Absolutely, she was supportive behind this all, and she doesn't even know what a first down is. I mean, she
Doesn't make a difference.
she just loves.
She saw how far you went and said, I'm not letting you give up on this. Now you got all this started, you have to finish
You
it.
got to finish
it's
it.
like you're not painting half the fence in the back. You have to paint all of the fence. You're not going to paint half the house. You have to paint all of the house.
Do it right the first time, right. But it's been a journey. I mean, life is a journey, and life is all about your attitude. And I just love doing this, meeting people and getting exposed. And you can see the shirt here. Because of this book, I worked for the NFL. For 9 years, I'm in every Patriots game, and I get paid to be there, which is amazing.
Nice job, huh?
Nice job.
And you get to watch the game.
and when Andre Tippett got inducted, I went out to the Hall of Fame, and I was there for 3 days. And the NFL Network was there, and then it was... the last day, I parked my car in the parking lot in a playground, and I got a little bus ride in. So
Little
when
jitney bus across.
so it was like 3 miles away. I said, all right, I'll get the bus and drive me over there. So when the Hall of Fame ended, and then there was another party, and then there was another party, and there was another party. It was 2:30 in the morning in Canton, Ohio.
And you're trying to find your car.
Well, it's almost there. So I'm hanging out, with John Elway, Michael Irvin, Clayton Weissoon, Andre Tippett and his family, and about 2 other people that I don't know. And I'm like, I got to call someone on this. It's 2:30 in the morning in Boston, but I have a
Who do I call?
I have a
gotta wake
son-in-law
somebody up.
in San Diego. I said 11:30. It's a Saturday night, so I call him up. I say, hey, Ron, how you doing? He says, what's up? I said, you're not going to believe this. I'm sitting next to Michael Irvin. Hey, Mike, what's going on? I said, I just said hi to Michael Irvin. Are you kidding me? John, I had to say something. It was just
But think about
beyond
this.
real. There's like
got-
9 people in the room, and I'm hanging out with these guys.
People in my profession, we get to live this every day. I don't do that too often, but I try to make people understand, Bob, more than anything. These are real human beings.
Yeah.
And most of them are very nice people.
They were.
Once you get them to a certain point, they are great people away from what they do.
Right.
You mentioned Steve Burton.
Yes.
I've known Steve Burton's dad since the day he basically came to play for the Patriots. You talk about somebody who did more off the field, even than he did on the field. He was a spectacular player on the field.
No question about it.
But man, you talk. God rest his soul, because that's one of the finest human beings
No
I
question.
have ever met in my life, and I was honored to speak at his retirement ceremony. They asked me to MC his retirement from the insurance company.
John Hancock.
John Hancock,
Yes, yes.
And I was just honored. I said, "Why are you asking me?" Because Steve had to be in Florida for spring training or whatever. And I got on Steve, said, "Look, I'd have told him spring training can hold for a day. Spring training's not going anywhere. Somebody's got to be there to speak for your father." I said, because for all he did, all the kids he took to camp, all of 30 years,
Yeah, I've been to his camp. It's amazing.
40
It's amazing.
years of great work.
Yeah.
And I told Steve, and I told his younger brother, who was working at Channel 8, the new cable station at the time, I said, "I don't think you really understand the magnitude of your dad and what he did. You talk about an ambassador for the game?
Sure.
He was an ambassador for the game. Now, you have all of this in front of you. How are you going to do it? How are you going to handle all this? Move in. I want to hear you. Because you're telling me you want to be a sportscaster. Do you know how much reading you're going to do?
A lot.
Thank you.
That's
You can't
it.
be afraid, well, that's 802. I don't care. Dude, nobody's going to care, because you're going to have facts in here that nobody else is going to have.
That's right.
When you
You're gonna have an
sit
advantage.
down with a group of people, you're going to say, or you get to talk to some young people who want to be sportscasters. You know what I read? I read this. You know what I read? I read this. Yeah, I read this. I read Vince Lombardi's book. I read this book. I wanted to know the history of every single league.
Right.
It took me years to acquire that. Before an internet, I used to be able to roll off stats and statistics, and people would say, even when I first started ESPN, when it was a fledgling little station,
Sure.
people would say, "We don't have a research department." Good, I'll be the research department. Just ask me, because I probably know it.
Yeah.
So guys would be on the air, call Jimmy at home. Why? Because I know he'll know it. And I never wanted to write a book. But the best part about this, I'm going to be fascinated to sit back when I read this, and I say to myself, I was there. I was there. I was there. Oh my gosh, I was there too. Oh, and then I will start to feel old. Now, how are you going to get through all this?
Pretty much just gonna read the book and take in all the facts I can get.
Are you gonna be excited now?
Of course.
Look what you've had a
course.
chance. You have a history of your favorite franchise laid right out in front of you. And this makes this
like-
easy. See, he did the work. You get to enjoy it. All you gotta do is buy it and enjoy it.
We got the 10 most memorable moments from games played at Fenway Park.
Exactly.
So you just know a couple of those, and you throw it out there, and you're like, this kid knows his stuff, you know? There you
Everybody
go.
would say, "Man, this is neat. I didn't even know they played at Fenway Park." Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they played at Harvard Stadium. Yes, they were playing all over the place at London. Anywhere they could find a field, they were playing at one time. And now you look at it as though we're heading into a game tonight, so we'll just shift this right to here.
you go.
Okay, young sportscaster, what are you looking for tonight?
All right. Well, if people have joined us for K Sports as well, they heard my take earlier, but I'll just reiterate. The biggest thing is the offensive line. We all have looked at the offensive line as such a big struggle. The question is, this Kansas City defense, it's not Minnesota, it's not Miami, it's not Oakland. This is a tough defensive line, and when Brady does get time, how's he going to take advantage of a secondary that doesn't have Eric Berry? So that's something definitely to look out for. Will the run game hold up? There are just many questions to be answered.
One of the biggest questions to me, and Bob, you can address this, that many people don't look at. I look at the sideline dynamic. These are two men that know each other extremely well.
Yep.
I mean, Andy Reid
yep.
and Bill Belichick, they know what each other's going to do. They've been in each other's minds for years. That's why these games, including the Super Bowl, that's why they're so darn competitive, because these two men know each other. And the players are an extension of their thinking, of how they're going to lay out the game plan. This is what we're going to do. And then whatever happenings in the game dictate a change, turnovers, falling behind or whatever, that's going to dictate what's going to happen. Your thoughts about it?
Well, if the Patriots have one running back rush for more than 100 yards, the Patriots are 38-1 since the Belichick era. So I'm looking for a running game, and I'm looking for Amendola to do something. Finally, maybe something. But I like our defense. I think our defense is going to shut these guys down. I don't expect Kansas City to score more than 2 or 3 times.
I don't know about this one. I think it's going to be real tough. It's called total Patriots, please go out and get yourself a copy if you're a Patriots fan. Me, I'm just the guy that has to cover everything. So go get the book. This is the man that wrote it. You can write him. You can find him. I'm sure he will be glad to send you a copy. Pay for it, please. Thank you. All proceeds are well accepted. God bless you, Bob. Thank you so much
All right,
for a
nice to
wonderful
see you
book.
again.
I will get a chance to get a copy. Young man,
Thank you very much.
knock 'em dead. Go
That's
enjoy
up.
the game, guys. I need Jimmy in here to close the show.
Oh, you're going to close the show?
Yes, we are.
Got to close the show. That's right.
Once again, this is the Jimmy's Sports Talk Show here on YouTube, and you can join us every Monday between 6:30 and 8:30 as we stream live right to you. And if you were listening tonight and some of the things you've learned from Dan Leibowitz and some of our other guests, this is a place you want to tune in because you're going to learn some things.
More importantly, I get to take the whole bunch of it and cut it up into little pieces so people don't have to watch 3 hours of
I
it.
taught him how to edit.
Okay.
He'll do a good job.
Wide
believe
to
me.
tight, wide to tight, wide to tight. We are the Jimmies. We are twin brothers, different mothers. Every Monday night here at the Knobscott Cafe. And a special thoughts go out to my Aunt Barbara, who passed away this week. She was a huge Red Sox fan. Her family is rallying around the memories, and I wish you all strength. And Barbara, we hope you rest in peace because you are still with me, just like you are with my mother, Barbara Young.
Barbara, God rest your soul. My condolences, my man.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll see you next week.
God bless.